Good evening and welcome to the November 4th, 2024 meeting of the City of Summit Zoning Board of Adjustment. My name is Joe Steiner and I chair the board. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In accordance with New Jersey Statute 10:4-10, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to a newspaper of record and has been posted here in City Hall. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. For the benefit of the interested public, this meeting is being live streamed to the city's YouTube page and also being broadcast on Summit's governmental channel, which is Comcast Channel 34 and Verizon Channel 30. A transcript of this meeting is also being taken using the video and audio, so we need all speakers to utilize one of the microphones here in the room. Please note that the fire exits are to my right and your left, and at the back of the room where you entered. The city also has a listening system to assist the hearing impaired. If anyone needs hearing assistance, please obtain the system at the dais and return it here thereafter. Ms. Sulios, would you please call the roll of the members?
Sure. Chairman Steiner?
Here.
Vice Chairman Loikitz is excused. Mr. Yuko?
Here.
Mr. Nelson?
Here.
Ms. Zahn?
Here.
Mr. Curran is expected but not yet present. Mr. Malay?
Here.
Ms. Toth is excused. Ms. Chifo is excused. Mr. Veskins is excused. Mr. Chanchuli?
Here.
You have a quorum. You may proceed.
Thank you. Andy Ball, sitting to my right, is the zoning board's attorney. He will be advising the board members on matter of law and is the key interface with the applicant's attorney. Mr. Ball does not vote on the applications. Stephanie Sulios, who called the roll, is a city employee and is the zoning board secretary. She works with applicants
Sorry, I just
on...
want to note for the record that Mr. Curran just came in.
Welcome. Ms. Sulios, who just told us all that, works with the applicants on putting their agendas, on putting their applications together, and planning our agendas, as well as keeping our meeting minutes. She also does not vote on the applications. Also present are our experts who are hired annually by the board to provide input. Tonight we have Maureen Raffi from Collier Engineering, also Ed Snykes from Burgess Associates, our board planner. These experts are seated at the table to the right of the board and the public's left. They do not vote on the applications. Our board consists of 7 regular members and up to 4 alternates. All members can participate in the hearings, but a maximum of 7 can vote. Most applications require a simple majority to be approved, but before we enter into executive session and vote on that application, we will advise the applicants as well as the public how many votes are required. We only have one case on our agenda tonight. In that case, we'll begin with the applicant's attorney giving us an overview of the application process so far and the variances that are required. When this application was put in, it was put in as 2 separate applications. It has been combined, and this may be the subject of multiple motions during executive session. So it doesn't mean that everything will be, everything doesn't have to be decided in one vote. It can be split up. It can be, certain parts may be approved, certain parts may not. We'll see how that goes after we hear the testimony, hear from the public, and hear from our attorney on various conditions, and then have our executive session. Once the board and the members have completed their questioning, the public has a chance to ask questions. Now, that is not the time to tell us what you think about the case. That will come a little bit later. So when a person has testified, a professional, you can ask questions, but again, don't ask, don't tell us what you think. All right. We want you to, when you come to the podium, we need you to spell your name, state your last name, spell your last name, and provide your address. Again, that's for the court reporter to get the public record. After the witnesses, and all the witnesses have been heard, now the members of the audience have their second opportunity to speak, and at that time you can express your opinion, positive or negative, about the application. And at that point you will be sworn in. Then the public hearing is closed, and we enter into the aforementioned executive session, where the board members will then discuss the case and vote. You'll be able to listen to our executive session, but you will not normally be able to participate in our discussion. Our city zoning officers have asked that we remind all applicants that they must carefully read the resolution that documents the zoning board's decision and pay particular attention to the conditions contained in the resolution, including landscaping plans and any other documents that may be required. And because you have an attorney with you tonight and we only have one case, I'm going to skip most of that. But failure to satisfy conditions in the resolution will result in a delay in your application and will cause extra work for the city zoning officer. The resolution documenting the board's decision is normally available a month after the case is heard and after we decide the case. Tonight's case is the Canoe Brook Country Club, and as I said, we have two parts to it, and we're ready to proceed, and their attorney, Hillary Ellis, is here. Please.
Good evening, Hillary Alls from Dempsey & Sheehan, representing the applicant Canoe Brook Country Club. They're the owner of property located at 30 Wallace Road, Block 901, Lot 1 in Summit, and 1108 Mars Turnpike, Block 5304, Lot 1 in Milburn Township. The improvements proposed are located entirely on the Summit property, which is located in the Gulf Zone. Canoe Brook originally filed two separate applications, one seeking approval for the expansion of the second floor of an existing building with 12 dormitory-style bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a lounge for employee housing, which is a use that has been previously approved by this board for this building at this site. The second application is for the installation of two 2,000-gallon above-ground fuel storage tanks, one for gasoline and one for diesel, where two underground tanks, one is 2,000 gallons and one is 6,000 gallons, exist on the site and are at the end of their useful life. These two applications have been consolidated and require the following relief: preliminary and final major site plan approval, a height and story variance for the existing accessory building, 15 feet and 1 story is permitted, 34.14 feet and 2 stories is existing, and there will be a reduction in height to 33.87 feet and 2 stories is proposed. A use variance to permit the expansion of the employee housing, which again is a use that was approved at the site in a 2005 approval by this zoning board. A modification of a condition of that approval, which permitted 3 employees to reside in the subject building, which was based on what was proposed at the time of the approval. And finally, a use variance to permit above-ground storage tanks as an accessory use where they are not permitted in the zone. The presentation will begin with the applicant's representative, Albert Costantini, followed by the architect for the employee housing project, Wayne Jacks, the civil engineer, Kyle Smith, the architect and expert with regard to the fuel storage project, Jasvinder Arjani, and ending with the planner, McKinley Marks.
Questions of the attorney? Seeing none, why don't you call your first witness?
Okay. Mr. Costantini?
If you could please raise your right hand. Do Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
Albert Costantini, Costantini.
Thank you. And just as operator, right, not as a expert?
Correct.
Thanks.
What is your occupation?
I am the General Manager, Chief Operating Officer of Canoe Country Club.
And what qualifications do you bring to this job?
I bring 30-plus years of private club management and have in both my current position and 13 years have presented before this board and the Millburn board for multiple projects that required different approvals.
And in your capacity as Chief Operating Officer and General Manager, are you authorized to speak on behalf of the applicant?
I am authorized and am responsible for this petition.
Perfect. And can you just briefly describe Canoe Country Club?
Canoe Country Club was founded in 1901 as a private country club. We are a family-oriented club. We offer golf on both sides of the highway. We have pool facilities, paddle, tennis, pickleball, regular tennis, and various other sporting aspects, as well as a robust dining program for our members.
Great. And can you explain to the board what is being proposed as part of this application using the aerial map that would ask be marked A1 and the reason why the club is seeking these improvements?
Take the portable microphone with you, and let's hope.
Yes, just please turn it on.
Okay, well, both projects are within this dotted rectangle here. The first is the renovation of the second floor of a building for employee housing. It will accommodate 12 rooms, all double occupancy for 24 additional beds that will allow the club to enter into the international labor pool with H-2Bs and J-1 visa employees. And this is in an effort to augment staff that we've been having issues with for several years, trying to hire people, local individuals to fill these jobs. This is not unusual for the private club industry to enter into the international labor pool. The second project is right in this location, as Hillary explained, the 2 above-ground fuel storage tanks. We have been encouraged by our insurance company as well as the DEP and EPA that the tanks have reached the end of their useful life, and that is all 3 of those organizations' wishes that we put in above-ground tanks for various reasons: safety, ease of maintenance, being able to reduce the amount of fuel we held on site. We're going from one 6,000-gallon tank to 2,000 because we just don't need the size of that 6-gallon tank any longer. The above-ground tanks will also be much easier to monitor because we'll be able to do visual monitoring as well as the electronic safety monitoring that comes with the tanks. They do come in various sizes. As I said, we are reducing the size of one of the tanks from 6,000 to 2,000 gallons. Safety, the above-ground storage tanks, again, much easier to maintain, much easier, even though they do come with their built-in security systems. They're being able to view them on a daily basis to preempt any maintenance issues that may happen. Environmentally friendly, they are designed as above-ground tanks. The in-ground tanks have the potential to burst and have fuel leach into the ground system. The above-ground tanks will eliminate that.
And can you just tell the board the distance of the improvements to the property line?
So the employee housing, we're looking at approximately 473 feet to Wallace Road, and approximately 1,049 feet to Woodland Avenue. The fuel storage tanks, 244 feet approximately to Wallace Road.
Wait, I'm going to correct you, sorry.
I'm sorry.
786.
I'm sorry, 786. I'm looking at the wrong number there. 786 to Wallace Road and 1,123 to Woodland Avenue.
Okay. And with regard to the employee housing, you said that it was a common practice for golf courses to have staff on site.
Yes, we currently have housing on the Milburn side for 12 clubhouse employees. There are a number of clubs in our area that have both on-premise and off-premise employee housing. Clubs all around the country that are involved in the H-2B and J-1 programs also take advantage of these programs.
Is there a kitchen proposed?
There is not. There's a common area that would have a refrigerator, a sink, and a lounge area, but all employee meals happen at the clubhouse, which is on the Milburn side. Staff will either use golf carts or club transport to get from the Summit side to the Milburn side for all meal periods.
And with regard to the 2005 approval, that was limited to 3 employees. Do you know why there was that limitation?
We have 3 rooms on the lower level, and I believe the three housed employees was the limit given the 3 bedrooms. That also has a refrigerator, sink, and a small common area.
And what are some of the reasons that make having employee housing desirable?
Certainly having the staff on site makes it easy for the staff to get to and from work. Public transportation in this area is not very accessible to the club. Certainly housing in this area is not very affordable for staff. So having the ability to have staff on site does make it more much more easier for them to come to work. Also makes it for the club easier for scheduling. Our industry does a lot of what we call split shifts, where the staff member will come in and work a lunch shift, then go home and then come back and work a dinner shift. Having them stay on site makes it easier for them to do those transitions to the different shifts.
And again, you said there's no kitchen, so the meals are all served in the clubhouse.
The clubhouse on the Milburn side, yes.
Right. So what about parking? Are any of these employees that are coming here, do they own vehicles? Are they driving to and from the site?
No, given that this will be used primarily for international staff, nobody will be coming with vehicles. There might be bicycles involved for local transportation, but all transportation requiring either mass transit or individual autos would take place on the Milburn side. Uber and Lyft would be directed to pick up on the Milburn side, and there is a public transit bus stop located near the Short Hills Mall that currently several of our employees use that to get back and forth to the property.
And would this employee housing just be for employees of Canoe Country Club?
Employees only. It wouldn't be used for member use. It wouldn't be used for any private events. It would be for staff only.
And can you just describe the process of who qualifies for the employee housing and the relationship of the employees to the club?
Well, in the international realm, it would be everybody applying for an H-2B visa or a J-1 visa would be vetted. We would do interviews with them prior to them being hired. They are vetted by the different organizations that provide these employees to the various clubs around the country. And they would be, depending on the type of visa, anywhere from a 6, 9, or 12-month time frame that they would be employed by the club.
And so there are required background checks for these employees?
Yes, there are.
What about any married couples or families?
Have not experienced this. We don't look for families. These are all individuals. Most are students in hospitality programs overseas that are using this as far as different types of credits for their degrees.
And the current building, does that have an alarm system, detection system, and sprinkler system?
It does have all three, and the second floor would be sprinkled to code.
Okay, and what is stored in the maintenance portion of that
The maintenance
building?
portion on the lower level is existing grounds maintenance equipment that is predominantly stored over the winter to keep it out of the weather. During the course of the year, there is some storage there as well. There is no maintenance done in that building. It is strictly storage.
And is there private security on the site?
We have 24/7 security, professional security on the property.
Great. And can you describe for the board the site circulation and what impact, if any, the proposal will have on trip generation and on-site parking demand?
We don't anticipate any additional on-site parking demand. As I said earlier, there will be no additional automobiles as a result of these employees. Currently, we have about 20 employees that either are already existing employee housed or daily grounds maintenance staff that work on the property, that the existing parking does satisfy all of those needs. All of the access on this side of the property is through a gate on Wallace Road. It opens at 5:30 in the morning for staff, 6 o'clock for deliveries, and it is closed by 9:30 nightly. We would anticipate really no change in flow of any sort of supply traffic other than the vehicles transporting the fuel. The fact that we will no longer have a 6,000-gallon tank will allow for smaller fuel tank trucks to be visiting the site.
And the fuel deliveries, is it the same as existing in terms of how many you're anticipating?
Yes,
And smaller trucks?
smaller trucks.
And what about deliveries for the employees that live on the site?
So FedEx, UPS, all of those deliveries are accepted over on the Milburn side at the main clubhouse, and then staff is informed, existing on-site staff, they're informed when their packages arrive and they pick them up at our front desk. It would be the same program for these employees.
Great. And can you explain how the trash and recycling is stored and collected?
Sure. In the lower garage area, we would keep trash receptacles that would be emptied as needed into larger dumpsters that are housed at the main grounds maintenance buildings. Those trash pickups are scheduled regularly for regular trash and on an as-needed basis for any recyclables.
So these additional employees will not generate extra trips from garbage trucks
No.
or recycling trucks,
No.
things like that, okay. The board engineer asked about the concrete storage bins located on the site. Can you clarify for the engineer and members of the board what is stored in those storage bins?
Yes, we have 3 concrete storage bins located right behind the grounds maintenance facility here. They are used for sand, soil, and mulch, all organic material that we use on the golf course.
So there's no salt that's stored?
No salt, no.
Okay. Is there any substantial change to the existing lighting as part of this proposal?
We don't anticipate any additional lighting other than some emergency lighting for the emergency egress, but I will defer to the engineer in his testimony for lighting.
Perfect. And the planner's report references a gas pump on sheet 5 of the engineer's plan. Is this pump proposed to remain?
Okay, we actually have 2 pumps, one gas and one diesel, that we've been using for the existing tanks. They will be removed and new pumps will be installed. Again, one for each type of fuel.
And did the club hold a neighborhood meeting in connection with the improvements proposed?
We did. We sent out approximately 95 invitations to the residents surrounding the Summit property on October 16th, scheduled at 7 p.m. By 7:45, only one neighbor had arrived with a couple of questions, so we ended the meeting at that point.
And were those questions related to this application?
They were not. It was a neighbor all the way up on Bellevue side of the property that asked different questions about lawn maintenance.
Perfect. Did the club retain the services of experts to assist in the development, preparation, and presentation of this application?
We did. As you mentioned in your opening remarks, Wayne Jacks with the architectural firm, Kyle Smith with the civil engineers. We have Jasvinder with the fuel tanks, and
McKinley.
McKinley, I'm very sorry, McKinley Mertz, as far as our professional planner.
Excellent. I don't have any other questions.
Before I go to them, could you, the visa program,
Yes, sir.
for those that may not understand what it is, can you explain what that program is and how it works and where the approvals come from? Because if I recall correctly, there's been recently a lot of issues trying to get those approvals. And let's take it from there, because I may have some follow-ups.
Yes, the federal government approves a certain amount of these visas on an annual basis. They are opened up to the public for, let's say in Canoe-Brook's case, we would apply for X number of these visas, and then we wait and find out how many we are approved for. A lot of the visas that are approved for 12 months, clubs share those employees. So Florida clubs who are on a different time schedule as we are up here in the Northeast, they would work in the winter, our winter, they'd be working in clubs down in Florida for their summer, and then switch 6 months for us. The applicants, and we are, as I said, just getting into this program, people coming in under these programs apply for the visas on their side, and then they are vetted through the government and approved.
What would happen, because I know this happened to the Jersey Shore, if none were approved? I know we had that problem down in the Jersey Shore a couple of years ago. Where would you get your employees from? And would those employees then be utilizing this housing?
Yes. As I mentioned prior, we have some housing on the Millburn side. They are U.S. residents that we hire from different areas, whether it be Newark, Jersey City areas, that people apply for the jobs, and then if we have housing available, we would offer it to them. If we were unable to fill all the beds with the international staff, we would look to augment it with domestic staff.
Okay. Let's go to our experts. Questions from there.
No, I have nothing from this witness. A few quick questions. Regarding the quantity of rooms or beds that you're asking for, what drives that? Is that a specific requirement or a need of the facility?
It's not a requirement, it's what we feel we would need. Also, the way the facility would be laid out, it would allow us to do co-ed housing, which we currently do not have the ability to utilize.
I see. In the fueling operations, do you have sort of a best management practices or a procedure set up in case there's spills and how that's handled?
Yes, we do. We have a documented emergency response package that the grounds maintenance crew uses in the event of any type of spill.
Okay, great. You had mentioned the storage of some equipment in the garage area, I guess, of the building itself. You identified that it's fully sprinklered. Any hazardous materials stored there, like fertilizers or
No,
sort of
it's
pesticides?
all kept in a separate facility.
Okay, thank you very much. No further questions.
Okay, questions from the board. Tom?
Yeah, a couple. First for Ms. Alt's great questioning of the first witness, by the way. Is there another witness who's better prepared to answer landscaping screening questions?
Yes.
Okay. The question's for you. Thank you for showing me around this afternoon,
My pleasure.
this morning. So a couple questions. I guess I hadn't thought about what 12 bedrooms meant, so that could be up to 24 people based on what you're saying.
They're all doubles, correct.
Yeah. You anticipate that would be full year-round? Is that very seasonal? Would it be more in the summer? Or I imagine you're dining all year-round, but I know golf is such as just the summer. Spring.
Yes, we certainly have a peak season, basically mid-April through mid-October, where we would hope to have all 24 beds filled, depending on the length of the visas of who we would be able to hire. Some of those beds could be 9 months, some could be 6 months, some could be 12. Really wouldn't be able to say exactly how many at this point until I knew what we were approved for.
Okay. And I don't know if there's a standard for this, and I try to phrase this delicately. Is 2 bathrooms enough for potentially 24 people? I mean, I assume that means 2 showers and,
Yeah, there are multiple showers
Multiple
and
sh- okay.
facilities in both restrooms, and one would be dedicated women and one would be dedicated for men.
okay. And I noticed while I was there today that aside from the existing structure with the three rooms, there's what looks like a house there.
Correct.
What is that used for?
That's used for grounds maintenance staff that currently live on property. There's 6 bedrooms in that house.
Okay, all right. Got some other questions, but I'll save those for other witnesses. Thank you.
Okay.
I have just 2 questions. One, and I'm not sure if this is right. So in 2005, you were approved to have 3 employees live in that building. Somewhere in here, did it say that there are 6 are living there now, or did I
No.
misread
No,
that?
that's the building he's just talking about, the yellow house. It
Okay.
has 6 employees.
Okay. And then you mentioned that, not just across the country, but locally, a lot more clubs are moving to this. Can you give examples of very local clubs that are
Certainly.
doing this?
Baltusrol has several employee housing areas, both on-site and individual housing off-site. Morris County has just purchased houses off-site. They do housing. Springbrook Country Club has employee housing. I
Is that
know
off-site or on-site?
Springbrook, I believe, is off-site. A lot of facilities don't have the room or the ability to turn any existing buildings into employee housing, like we have this empty second floor of this building.
This side?
I have a couple of questions on the fuel deliveries. All those fuel deliveries going off Wallace Road,
Correct.
and you say you're reducing the gasoline or the diesel storage from 6 to 2?
That would be the gasoline.
The gasoline's going from 6 to
Yeah.
2?
Correct.
And what about the diesel?
2 to 2. Same size on the diesel, 2,000.
Okay, if you're going down to a 2,000-gallon tank as opposed to 6, how many times a week, month, day do you get a 6,000-gallon delivery? And isn't that going to cause more deliveries for a
No,
2,000-gallon tank?
we're going down to the 2,000 because we found that the 6,000 is not needed. So when we do get a delivery, we're not filling the 6,000-gallon tank, especially now since we've been told that they're getting to their
How often do you
useful
anticipate
life.
getting a delivery for?
I think weekly, bi-weekly.
Yeah, it's one
So-
night.
well, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm saying it correct. One time a month, we get fuel deliveries.
One time a month? Is that how it is now? or-
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And that won't change?
No.
If this were approved, how many people would you be housing, potentially maximum housing on the property?
On
Third-
the Summit site?
On the
or-
Summit side or both sides?
Both altogether.
45.
For both Milburn and Summit.
And that's split how?
It would be split 12 on the Milburn side and 33 on the Summit side. 27 in the one building, 6 in the other.
I'm going to do this now because I know it's going to come up. This is all affordable housing, because obviously these are not folks who are your members or those kind of, that kind of income level. As you know, Summit is looking at a 59-person unit requirement. Is there any plan to provide this to the state as an example of affordable housing? Is that possible to do? Are we able to somehow provide a benefit to the city through this, what is affordable housing?
I don't know the answer to that question, just because it's not held out to the public as a whole. These are specific people that are applying for these jobs, so I don't know if the state would
Well, but they have to get their approval through the federal government.
They do. I don't know.
I'm just seeing the government's involved here somehow. Have we looked into this, or can you give us any response to what we've heard?
Yes, so we did look into this, and this wouldn't qualify as affordable housing. One of the reasons would be is that there's no kitchen in the rooms, so that's.
Want a
why.
kitchen? So that wouldn't count, though. Is there a reason that we shouldn't be, when we're adding more than 4 units, if I recall correctly, we're supposed to be getting affordable housing for it? Now, how do you get affordable housing for affordable housing? I don't know.
On private land, though, so it's a little,
Well, these are all private land, that's the golf land. I mean, if you build 4 apartments,
right.
Well,
but
how-
that-
It's on
that's
private
different,
land.
that- Yeah.
How important is it not held out to the public issue? That was my first reaction, too. I mean,
Yeah.
it does have to be held out to the public in order to even be eligible.
Mr. Chairman?
So-
Mr. Chairman, if I
they-
could. Yeah, we actually talked about this in our office today, and this would be a great thing if we could find affordable housing credits for these units. But unfortunately, without the kitchen facility and also the fact that it's not publicly noticed or having people from the public apply for these units, it doesn't meet the face value of the current rules. I wish there was a provision like you're saying, which is almost, I'll use the phrase workforce housing, but there's some other phrases for that. But to qualify for sort of a transient housing condition where the people are likely income qualified because of their nature, but yet that's something that doesn't exist in the current rules. So that's why we can't get credit for them. I
and
would
we
love to
can't
find out.
require them to contribute to the housing fund from this?
That's another question I don't know the answer for,
I
as far
think-
as the trust fund.
As far as the trust fund is concerned, that would be the analysis of any increase in the assessed value as a
Assessed
result of this
Right.
that the city would then designate. But I do not believe, I know you mentioned the potential set-aside of units. I'm not sure, and I can try to look into the code, but I don't believe this would qualify for the mandatory set-aside.
Yeah, it's not contemplated, at least from that regulation, by my experience.
Trying to get a benefit for the city out of this somehow.
Oh, absolutely. I
When
was-
we
Well, there
first.
is a benefit
yeah.
to these employees, obviously, then it
There's
does
a
meet a lot
benefit
of
to the
the goals
employees,
of
there's
the
benefit to
master
the
plan
members, is
and-
all that,
Right.
and looking for one more.
When we first approached the town about this project a couple of years ago, we did have the conversation, and the club would not be opposed to the town being able to count towards their, towards their housing goals, but we wouldn't want it to interfere with the club's ability to fill those rooms and not open them to the public.
But you would be opening them to the public if there were no visa program. You would be opening to, I believe you said Newark and other areas where
Other, yeah,
people.
Union,
would-
Newark, Jersey
Right.
said yes.
Well,
And
not
that-
open
that
to
is
the
the
public
public.
in terms of, they have to work
They would
at
have
the
to be
club.
employees of the club.
Have to be employees of the club.
They
So
wouldn't
not-
be
not-
able to-
not
they
the
wouldn't be
general
able to
public.
come-
Right, exactly.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to come live on property and then go work
To
somewhere
work
else.
somewhere else, right.
It's not a general lottery.
But wait a minute, you just also said that they might be working for other clubs. If Baltusrol has another major golf tournament, wouldn't perhaps some of your employees be working there?
Well, if I can, sorry, I think he
Please.
said that they share them during the seasons with clubs that,
But maybe you
Part
share
down.
them with a tournament area. I know, I'm being,
You're asking me questions I'm really not prepared to answer at this point, but I know that, when Baltusrol hosts a major tournament, they look for volunteers. They look to hire other employees, but we're still operating during that time. So I wouldn't be able to give half of my or a third of my workforce to Baltusrol for a
you think
period of time.
you think you'd be busier, right? Okay. Or you'd hope for. Okay.
Yes.
If we find out any more before the resolutions, if indeed this gets approved, we can always revisit, correct?
Sure, although I don't,
I mean, if we find something out. Okay. Any other questions? Don?
So could you walk me through a typical day right now of who uses the Wallace Road entrance? How many times?
Okay.
Other than the fuel delivery.
Okay. Staff, as I said, those gates start getting used at 5:30 in the morning for staff. Generally, that staff is leaving property between 3 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then throughout the week, various times during the 8 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. timeframe for deliveries such as sand, mulch, chemicals for the golf course, fertilizers, those sorts of things. So it is intermittent use throughout the day, throughout the week.
So approximately now, how many visits do you think there are going through that gate?
A day, a week,
day.
6 to 8.
And so if we were to, and I know you stated that if you increase the number of occupants for the housing, most of them won't have cars, but let's say 50% have cars.
I would say none would have cars because they, again, if we fill it with the international housing, which is what we hope to do, there would be no cars. If
I
it's
was told this a long
yeah.
time ago, hope's not a plan.
Correct. Anyone else, if we are filling it with local staff, they would all be parking on the Milburn side in our staff parking lot.
All of them?
Yes, all of them. The only staff that would continue to use that gate would be the grounds maintenance staff, and that's who's currently using it now.
So the additional housing would be purely for grounds maintenance or for both the hospitality side and grounds maintenance?
No, the additional housing we're looking for entirely for clubhouse hospitality.
So that made me think of one more question. I mean, if you have 27 people living in that building who are going to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the main clubhouse, I guess, is this on a staggered schedule? How does that work? And how do they, I mean, they're going to use golf carts while people are golfing? Like, what's the path? How are they getting there?
So there's a main cart path that is used to access from the Milburn to the Summit and back side. We train staff that are using, beverage cart staff, grounds maintenance staff. We train them on how to drive through the golf course, what to look out for from a safety standpoint and playing standpoint. We generally are serving staff meal from 11 to 11:30 lunch, and dinner from 5 to 5:30 in the evening. We don't offer breakfast.
Any other questions for this
Yeah,
witness?
A couple more, if you don't mind. So if I'm a person that lives in that, which you're proposing a new housing, and I need a new pair of shoes, how do I get that done? without a
You
car?
would arrange for a Lyft or an Uber, or decide to take a bus, mass transit. You would work your way to the Milburn side, have your Lyft or Uber pick you up there at the main clubhouse, or walk to the bus stop by Short Hills
So
Mall.
that all has to be done on the Milburn side?
Yes.
Or you'd order from Amazon.
I was about to
We'll
say that.
deliver
That's where
to
I buy
the
my
Milburn
shoes.
side all
Right,
the
my
way.
point is, you're still generating trips, whether it be an Uber or a Lyft or a
But all
delivery truck.
from the Milburn
All
side,
from
where our
All
main,
from Milburn,
main
correct.
ingress and egress to the property are.
Just had another question. Why the preference for international? Understanding the turnover that you have and how difficult that is, but with housing, I'd have to imagine there's got to be some good hospitality programs with 24 jobs, local jobs that could potentially be explored, or is that,
You would think.
yeah? No.
Has not been our experience. We consider ourselves an employer of choice,
Mm.
and we offer very competitive salaries and benefits. And we do work with both local and regional hospitality schools, universities, and that's generally in different types of lower to mid-level management types of positions. It's not filling for bussers or servers or dishwashers or those types of positions.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
I guess I'm also thinking about the lifestyle of the people who are living here.
Mm-hmm.
I just haven't heard anything about any amenities, like yes, they could take an Uber to go buy a pair of shoes, but it kind of seems like they're mostly stuck here, right? They don't have a car. They are, you said mass transit's not that great, basically. So that's kind of it. They have their dorm room, and then they're there for 6 or 9 months when they're not having meals or working. That's kind of it. Most of them, are they not leaving the site?
No, they're definitely leaving the site. They're, close proximity to New York City, close proximity to other cultural areas. They wouldn't, they're not locked into the facility. They can go, and we're not in this program yet, but our plans are to do welcome packets, to provide them with maps, to provide them with transportation schedules, provide them with all the different types of literature we can on the arts, music, entertainment. Newark is a hotbed for sports and different types of cultural programs. So, certainly we would make programs like this known to them and, part of their on-board orientation. But it's really up to the employee to take advantage of what they want to take advantage of. From my understanding, talking to other clubs that are currently in these programs, these individuals are here to work. They want to work. They want to make as much money as they can before they end up having to go back home.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, any questions from the public? If anyone has a question from the public, please come forward. Again, state your name, spell your last name, and ask your question,
Bill
please.
Jankowski, Jankowski. I'm at 39 Wallace Road. The program, the international program is terrific. I can tell you that for a fact. We use it in our Florida course, and we get the same guys back every year, and females. And they do have families. You can't curtail them not to have families. And they all have cars. Speaking of cars, Saturday.
Question,
Mike.
please. We
you-
need questions only.
Okay. Parking, you're going to need parking, I think. And I don't think they're addressing the parking situation.
Sir, this is for questions of this witness only. There will be a public comment section at the
Okay.
end where you can state your opinions.
Thank you.
So I guess your
What will
question
be the
is,
total staff for the golf course?
In season.
In season, yes.
In season, we could have up to 350 employees.
Counting the caddies.
Caddies are not employees.
Okay. That's a lot of people.
that's your question?
But is that what's existing, or is that what's proposed?
That's what's proposed.
And what is existing?
Anywhere between.
He's got to use a microphone.
Currently, what we have is anywhere from 275 to 300 at any given time now. The additional staff are what we're looking to augment.
Any other questions, sir?
I have no more questions.
Okay,
This time.
thank you. Anyone else who has a question? Yes, sir.
Joseph Wagner, W-A-G-N-E-R, 7 Wallace Road. My only question right now is, of the 24 proposed people, how many are ground maintenance versus this international, staff that was to, like a training session or whatever?
Our hope would be that all 24 beds would be filled by the international workforce. Our grounds maintenance staff is different from what we're proposing to house in this building.
So you don't propose any to be ground maintenance staff coming in onto 24 beds?
Not contemplated at this time.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Oren?
Gil Orman, 45 Wallace Road. Just a couple questions. I read looked at the file this morning, and it's 29 is the number. 24 would be new, but there's 5 there now. I think there should be 3, but there are 5, so that'd be 29. Is that correct?
That is not correct. The original submission was an error. It showed 5 beds on the first floor. There were only 3. So it would be the 24 on the second floor plus the 3 existing, which would be 27.
27, okay. Are there any now that are part of the international program?
We do not currently have housing to offer them, so we have not entered into that program as of today.
On the domestic ones that are not vetted as the international one would be, what is the vetting process for the domestics that are there now and are employed by you?
Okay, all of our current employees are vetted by club staff. We have a professional HR department that conducts the interviews, does checks. They're interviewed by the department managers, at least one. I would say that our interview process is very robust. We require references for any type of position, somebody coming in new.
I just like, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt. For the existing 3 employees in that house, as part of the resolution in 2005, they are required to have background checks.
Are the rooms restricted to the people who are working there? Or can they have guests come in?
Okay, we have a guest policy where all guests need to be off property by, I believe it's by 11 p.m.
But they
So
can't have guests.
They can, certainly, people make friends, they can have other employees as guests, if they're somebody that's been there for a long period of
In their
time,
room.
they could have a guest in their room, but the guest needs to be out of the room by 11 p.m.
And where would the guest park?
The guest would park on the Milburn side, just like everybody else.
There will be testimony regarding the number of parking spaces
Thank you.
on the Summit side.
Any other questions from the public?
Paul Dean, 61 Wallace Road, Summit, New Jersey. Mr. Cosentino, you sent us a letter October 3rd, is that correct, to neighbors?
Yes, I did.
And does it say anywhere in that letter that there will be 24 employees on the site?
I believe we referenced both projects. I don't believe we put an exact number in the letter. It was going to be explained in the program.
Okay, you didn't put any number in the letter. Okay. Do you know if apartments are allowed in the Gulf Zone?
They are not, that's why we're here seeking a use variance.
Is multifamily allowed in the Gulf Zone?
That is why we're here seeking a use variance, which has already been approved once before in 2005, and this board found that that use was appropriate for this site.
Was that for 3 employees?
At the time, it was for 3 employees because that's all that was proposed.
I have no further questions.
Any other questions from the public? If not, we should move to your next witness.
Perfect. Wayne Jacks.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
Yes, the name is Wayne Jacks, Jacquees.
Thank you, and can you briefly describe your background and experience in 3 boards you've appeared before recently?
I'm a registered architect. Been registered architect since 1986. Now is in Massachusetts. Currently, I have 16 licenses, including New Jersey, since 2001. Have bachelor's and master's degree from Oklahoma State University, and I've been with the current firm that I'm at for just over 20 years.
And just 3 boards you've been accepted before recently?
Milburn, Rivervale, Essex Fells, Paramus.
All right.
That's 4.
Board. Any questions from the board, or would you like to
Questions?
accept his credentials?
Okay, let's go ahead and move forward.
Can you tell the board and the interested public about the firm you worked for, specifically whether or not the firm has a special expertise in providing architectural services to clubs?
Yes. The firm's been in business for 41 years. Our specialty is private clubs. Probably 85 to 90% of our work is private clubs, both golf, city, and yacht clubs. That's our specialty, and that's what we focus on, both in master planning and in doing the actual programs.
Can you just name a few of those clubs that you've worked for?
Essex Fells, Mountain Ridge, Baltusrol, Canoebrook, and numerous projects. Springbrook, Spring Lake, Roxitticus, Fiddler's Elbow.
Perfect, thank you. And did Canoebrook Country Club engage your firm to provide architectural services in connection with the improvements to the existing maintenance and employee housing building? And can you explain the steps that you've taken to prepare yourself to give expert testimony?
Yes, they did. We've been working with Canoebrook for approximately 12 years. They hired us to look into this project, as they do have in other projects. Usually start with meeting with Albert and his staff and the board or committees to develop a design program to figure out what needs to be, what their goals are and how we achieve it. Sometimes we look at multiple iterations to see the best use of a property and for the proper number of units or program that they want.
And you said you did site inspections and you've reviewed the ordinance.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So now that you've qualified as an expert in the field of architecture and established an adequate foundation, can you describe the existing building and the proposed expansion using the architectural plans filed with the application, as well as revised sheet P1.1, which I would ask be marked as A2, and the rendering marked as A3?
This first diagram is the revised P1.1, and the only revision on it is shows the 3 beds as opposed to the 5 beds that were shown in the original document that was given to the board. This shows the proposed first floor of the building, which the current first floor is 4,352 square feet, and we're adding approximately 120 square feet, which is the egress stair from the second floor. That's the only footprint change on the ground for this building. SD3, which is the proposed second floor of this building. The current footprint of the second floor is 2,022 square feet. It's mainly used for storage, with one stair going up to that level. And what we're proposing is to expand the footprint on the second floor, approximately 1,712 square feet, for a total of 3,740 square feet on this level, which is smaller than the lower level because there are some roof areas to create the architecture to make it not a 2-story box. This is to be exhibit A2, I believe. or 2?
A3.
A3. This is a proposed rendering of what the building will look like with the addition. These being the doors to the maintenance level. The existing first floor is stucco, that'll remain stucco, and the second floor will be a clapboard material that'll match colors to the existing other buildings on the property.
And then again, can you just confirm that there is fire separation and a sprinkler system?
Yes, it's required by
existing and
code for
proposed?
fire separation between the residential use and the storage use.
And the lighting that's proposed?
The only proposed lighting is at the doors. We're adding actually one new light over the new stair, which is required for emergency egress. And those will meet the standards required by the city.
And again, the purpose of those stairs, the reason they're being added.
It's for the second means of egress from the second floor. There's currently one that's internal, and this will be the second means from the second floor.
And in the floor plans, again, in those lounge areas, is there any oven?
No, there's no cooking in this facility.
Okay. Can you describe the variances that are being requested with regard to the building?
Currently, it's an accessory structure, which is required to be 15 feet and 1 story. The existing building is 2 stories and 34.41 feet in height. And so we're just proposing to expand the second floor, and the height will actually be reduced to 33.87. So we're looking for those variances on the height and the accessory building.
And based on the distance of the property and the existing screening and the perimeter screening, will this have any impact visually on surrounding properties, and will the height be easily perceived?
We don't see it that having a negative impact to the surrounding areas, and the height, as mentioned, is actually a little bit shorter than the existing building.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay, questions from our professionals? Ed?
I just have one question regarding mechanicals. Any changes to mechanicals on site?
Well, there'll be additional mechanicals for the additional units upstairs.
Okay, will those be on ground
Yes, they will.
and properly screened?
Yes.
And the engineer will talk about the screening.
Okay.
Okay, questions from the board?
I just have one about the height, just trying to clarify. Are you actually reducing the height of the building, like putting on a new roof and lowering it, or is the height lower because of the grade plane or something, you know?
The whole roof structure is new, so.
So you're
roof
just dropping it
structure
like
is
half a
lower,
foot?
Yes.
Okay.
Tom?
Excuse me. Sounds like you worked in a number of other country clubs as well. How would you characterize the number of employees that would be living on this property if it's approved versus the other clubs you've worked on?
It really varies, and it's similar to what Albert said, that most clubs do not have the space that they can put additional housing. In most master plans we're doing, almost every club we're doing a master plan for is looking to add employee housing to their facilities, just because it's just required in this industry to be able to keep and get employees.
So you would agree that you're saying Canoe Brook is fortunate they have the space, that other clubs, if they had the space, would probably do more?
Correct.
But they all do as much as they can? Is that what your testimony
Yes.
is? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Questions?
Were there any provisions for solar power, any power storage, so that could reduce the amount of fuel?
We have not looked into that, no.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
What's, like you said, what's the square footage per person? Is that pretty standard on other projects you've worked on? Yeah. The dorm or the 2-bed rooms are standard for what we're doing in other clubs and what we see in other clubs.
So, so this is fully sprinklered, top and bottom?
Yes,
Central station fire alarm?
I believe so.
Any idea where the nearest fire hydrant is?
I do not know that.
Is it on site?
I'm sure the civil engineer will testify.
Okay.
Other questions from the board? Questions from the public? Yes, sir.
You said roughly 3,000 square.
Paul, you get to say your
I'm
name
sorry,
again.
Paul Dean, 61 Wallace Road, Summit, New Jersey. So you said that it's roughly 3,000 square feet, right?
What, the second floor?
Second floor.
3,740.
Okay. 3,740 divided by 24. That's 155.83 square feet of living space per employee.
Okay.
You also said that there would be no negative impacts on the neighborhood. You're an architect, right? So what do you base that statement
Sorry,
on?
it was visual impact.
Okay. Is that what you said?
Yes, I did say visual impact, just from the distances and with all the trees and landscaping as on the site. I personally do not feel that would be a negative impact to the neighbors visually.
And what do you foresee families coming in using the dormitory rooms? Because he did state, the golf person stated that there could be families living in there, right?
No,
That I'm not aware of.
no, Albert said that there will not be any families.
Okay, that's all I have for you, thanks.
It was a witness who said that there would be, it was a questioner rather who
There was
indicated
a
that there
witness
might
that
be
said at
some.
another club there were families,
Right,
but
but that's not to
that is
happen
not what
here.
is proposed here.
Mr. Oren?
Could we see that picture?
Oh, I'm sorry. Any other questions from the public? Yes, sir.
Joe Wagner, Wagner, 7 Wallace Road. The building, the only change in footprint is the stairway to get into the building, right? The second floor.
Yeah, the emergency stair coming from the second floor.
What's on the second floor now that you're not expanding the building?
It's storage.
So you'll, half the storage will be gone and the other half's converted into the
Yeah,
dormitory?
the storage will be removed from the second floor, and the second floor will be the dormitory.
So the second floor is 3,200 square feet or something you said?
Yes. 3,700.
But you're only using 1,600?
No, 3,740 is for the dorm, the restrooms, and the common area.
Okay, I thought it was 1,680 or something for the expansion.
That's what
That-
they're adding
that's
to
adding
the
to
second
the-
floor.
2,000 square feet of storage.
See, but you're not changing the footprint, you're just changing the access, what's being used upstairs.
Not changing the ground floor footprint. The upstairs is being enlarged.
Okay, so you're adding square footage
to the second
upstairs.
floor. Yes,
Okay, but you're lowering the roof line.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the public? Seeing none, your next witness?
Mr. Chairman, before I go to the next witness, can I ask one question, I guess, from Ms. Sulios? Actually, this prompted by Mr. Nelson's line of questioning. I noticed the fire chief did not submit a report on either one of these cases, and I'm a little surprised. I assume that he was asked.
Yes, it was sent out, and I didn't receive anything back.
Okay. I'm just surprised, okay.
We didn't hear that answer.
Repeat the answer?
That, yes, the reports were sent out on the date that's noted on the comment sheet. I don't have it in front of me, and they weren't sent back to me.
We can't hear you.
Sorry, now? Okay. So yes, I did send out the sheets for, the materials for staff comments, and I did not receive a report back.
Okay. Surprising.
Yes, it is surprising. I guess we should move to your next witness.
Sure. Kyle Smith. So we have some exhibits. Do you want the handouts before we get started? Will that make it easier?
Probably the easiest, and these are, as a package, they are what,
They're gonna be A4, 5, and 6, and they're also a copy of A1, which has already been shown.
okay?
Thank you, sir.
And can you also make some available to the audience?
We can share one, so take this.
Okay, you could, I'm sorry, but all of you get to share. And we will swear you in and qualify you before we start.
If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
Kyle Smith, S-M-I-T-H.
Thank you. Can you briefly describe your background, experience, and 3 boards you've appeared before recently?
Yes, so I'm a licensed professional engineer practicing civil engineering for over 17 years. I'm a licensed in the state of New Jersey as a civil engineer, and I'm in good standing. I received a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering in 2007 from the College of New Jersey. I'm a principal at Dynamic Engineering. I've been here for 2 years, where I work on private land development sites. Prior to that, for 15 years, I worked in the public sector. So I worked as a consultant for municipalities and planning boards. So a lot of my experience is on the public side, and now I've been working on the private side for the past 2 years. So because of that, I've only actually testified in front of one board, which was a few years back in Freehold Township.
And you were accepted there, I imagine.
Yes.
Any questions from the board, or would you like to accept his credentials?
I think we'll accept your credentials and ask Mr. Aldis to move
Sure.
forward.
Were you retained in your capacity as a professional engineer to prepare a site plan for the minor expansion of the maintenance and employee housing building proposed by Canoe Brook? That's the subject of this application.
Yes.
And what steps did you take to prepare for this commission?
First, we conferred with the Canoe Brook staff, the principals there, to understand what the scope of the project was. Then I worked directly with the architects and the rest of the professionals to really dig into the design requirements. I reviewed the applicable zoning ordinance provisions of the City of Summit, and as it relates to the dimensional regulations applied to the site. Then based on this, I prepared a site plan that was submitted for this project on the south course of the Club Summit site.
And was the site plan prepared in accordance with acceptable, regular, and prevailing professional engineering standards?
Yes.
And recognizing that the employee housing and fuel storage tank proposals were originally filed as 2 separate applications that have now been consolidated, did you prepare an updated site plan sheet that incorporates the lot coverages for both projects?
Yes, we prepared an updated site plan and a rendered site plan.
I would ask if those be marked as A4 and A5. So using Exhibit A1, A4, and A5, can you describe the site plan with regard to the employee housing project from a civil engineering perspective?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. So Albert did a great job of explaining the location of the site, but just to give it a little more perspective, this is on the northern edge of the City of Summit. It's surrounded by the municipal line with the Township of Milburn to the north, as well as Route 124 and 24. And then it's surrounded by residential properties to the west, south, and the east, by Wallace Road to the west, Woodland Ave to the south, and Bellevue to the east. So Albert gave the distance already, but I can just go through it briefly here, whereas the proposed employee housing is 473 feet from the property line on Wallace Road and 1,049 feet to the property line on Woodland Ave. And the proposed above-ground storage tank is approximately 786 feet from the property line on Wallace Road and 1,123 feet from the property line on Woodland Avenue. So with that, the existing conditions of the site, as previously explained, 2-story building that has maintenance and storage, and it also has employee housing, which was approved by the Board of Adjustment in 2005. There's currently 6 parking spots directly adjacent to the building, and there's the footprint of the building is 4,344 square feet, and that's existing, and the net usable area currently for both floors is 5,870 feet.
And then what is proposed?
So as we previously described, the proposed building addition is a footprint of 177 square feet.
And that, I'm sorry, that includes the stairs and the landing, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
The existing and proposed lot coverage for both applications, so that's counting both the employee housing and the above-ground storage tanks, that is 105,455 square feet existing, and the proposed is 105,913 square feet for a total of 1.96% of lot coverage, which is well under the 3% permitted. And it's a net increase of 458 square feet of impervious area. So that 458 square feet, 422 square feet of it is from the employee housing, and 36 square feet is from the above-ground storage tanks. The existing building coverage for the site is 19,401 square feet, whereas the proposed building coverage will be 19,578 square feet. There's no building coverage limitation in the G zone. We're also going to have some, as previously described, mechanical equipment will be located on the east side of the building. That's going to be, there's going to be a 7-foot-high privacy fence with privacy slats located around that. There's sidewalk on the east side of the building and landing ramps. There's also a ramp leading up on the south side of the building, and just a pad on the north side of the building for the doors. As it relates to utilities, the existing utilities on the site include a sanitary sewer lateral, water service, we already spoke about the fire service, gas and electric, and it's anticipated that the existing capacity of the utilities are sufficient enough that there will not need to be upgrades to the utility services. So landscaping was, in general, was described, the perimeter of the site has trees and some buffers, there's fencing, and obviously with the distance from the existing road property line to the building, we don't anticipate that'll be a significant view to the off-site public. We are removing one evergreen in order to install that proposed addition, so we're replacing that evergreen right up here as shown on the rendering. We will also put some shrubbery on the side to surround both the mechanical equipment and the sidewalk walkway leading up to the building.
Is there any signage proposed?
No signage is proposed, just the ADA parking sign.
Okay, and with regard to the proposed above-ground fuel storage tanks, did you prepare an exhibit that shows the location of the proposed tanks?
Yes.
I would ask if that would be marked as A6. It's entitled Maintenance Building Area Exhibit, dated 11/4/24. And using A6, can you describe the fuel storage tank proposal from a civil engineering perspective, recognizing that Mr. Arjani will testify as to the specifics of that project?
Certainly. So as you guys are aware, we revised the location of the above-ground storage tank on the site. That was done in order to reduce the impact to parking. So it was shifted from the plans that you guys previously seen. It was shifted slightly to the west in order to reduce the impact to existing parking. So we will be losing 5 spots within this area, but we still were able to maintain 4 spaces based off of the ability to fuel and get through the above-ground storage tank area.
And how many spaces are on site proposed?
26 total spaces.
Okay, and then just, going back to the parking area there, how many spaces are being proposed?
8 spaces are proposed,
And-
7 standard spaces and 1 ADA compliant space.
And there were 6 there previously?
Correct.
Okay, sorry.
So going back to the above-ground storage tank, as part of this, there's an existing berm, which will be discussed in Mr. Anjani's testimony. That part of that is being removed. But our proposed setup, we're also proposed to do screening on the north and the west sides of the above-ground storage tank area.
Sorry, I just want to clarify, the whole berm is not being removed, just a small portion,
Just a
right?
small area of berm where they're going to have to grade around the proposed
Okay.
tank site, which Mr. Anjani will explain.
Perfect.
But we're going to be screening that with a total of 16 blue girl and blue boy hollies. Those grow to approximately 6 to 8 feet at a mature height, and they'll be located on the top of the berm. So the tanks, which are 6.5 feet high, will not be visible from a distance based off of that. And then we will also require some lighting, some safety site lighting in the area of the above-ground storage tanks. That's going to be provided with mentioned sensor lights, and as a condition of approval, a lighting plan will be submitted to the planning board engineer for review and approval. Any proposed lighting that we will, provide here on the site will not adversely impact the neighbors based on the distance to the property lines and the type of lighting that will be provided.
And it'll comply with the ordinance?
That's correct.
Okay. So using Exhibit A4 and A6, can you describe for the board the proposed off-street parking?
Yes, so the ordinance requirements state such that there's one space required per bedroom. So the existing, there's an existing building down here that has 6 bedrooms, so that requires 6 parking spaces. This will have, the proposed building will have 15 bedrooms, so that's a total of 6 plus 15 is 21 parking spaces required. Mr. Constantini already previously testified that the need at this time is approximately 20 spaces, and he does not foresee that changing. We will be providing more than that with 26 spaces. That's completed by the 7 standard spaces and 1 ADA parking space. So that's a total of 8 here. And then very, proximate to the building, it's a distance of approximately, I think I have it here, 240 feet from the proposed employee housing building are all these parking spaces. So it's a total of 18 spaces within the area by this maintenance building, which does not require any parking.
And the new parking, those 8 spaces, they comply in terms of size and width and striping with the ordinance?
That's correct, and we've revised this exhibit to show the double hairpin striping as required per the ordinance.
Great. And can you tell the board if any stormwater management is proposed based on the addition of more than 300 square feet of impervious area?
Yes, so I spoke with the planning board engineer, Ms. Marie Raffay, and we've talked about the fact that there's an additional 458 square feet of impervious area being proposed as part of the combined projects. And we understand there's a ordinance from the city to anything over 300 square feet will require drainage for a minor development. So even though the 458 square feet is de minimis to the overall site, we understand the requirement, and we intend to address that by taking a minimum of 458 square feet from the roof, taking the roof leaders down into underground piping into a dry well, and that's clean water that will be infiltrating into the ground.
And have you had an opportunity to review the engineer's comments with regard to the staff housing project? And can you respond to any items that you have not already covered in your testimony?
Yes, so comment number 10 related to the soil erosion and sediment control plan. So as part of this project, we're going to disturb less than 5,000 square feet. So soil erosion certification is not required from the Soil Conservation District, but we will provide that plan as requested by the planning board engineer, a soil erosion and sediment control plan, which
I'm
delineates the
assuming you mean
disturbance.
zoning board engineer.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. Zoning board engineer. I apologize. And then item number 15, a construction detail was requested for the sidewalk, and we'll provide that.
Great. I don't have any other questions.
So you're am I to understand that we do not have the drawings for any of the remediation for drainage? Those have not been submitted?
Not at this time.
But there was a
Why not?
conversation because this, the amount of lot coverage came up once the staff reports came out, and as soon as we found out, Kyle reached out to the board engineer and they discussed.
Marie?
That's correct. We spoke on this on Friday, and we talked about that stormwater requirement, and just as he had said, it would, he looked at it as being de minimis to the whole site, but in reality, putting these two projects together, combined, became something over the 300 square feet. And I can see maybe where he was brought into this project as just being the dormitory, right? Right, so then when these two combined, I think it was like, oh, wait a second, we didn't take into account the above ground storage tanks. So when he puts those two together, now it's above the 300. So he said he'd be willing to put in some drainage remediation. So I think that's the timeline
So
on it, if that makes sense.
you would be looking for a condition that you see those drawings prior to the resolution?
That's correct.
I don't know if everybody else on the board agrees with that. I'm a little confused with the number of parking spaces. Earlier testimony said that nobody is going to be using a parking space. Now we know we have to have one per bed.
That's the
I-
ordinance requirement, yes.
Right, but we have to have one per bed. I
Bedroom.
heard 21
One
spaces.
per
I've heard
bedroom.
18 spaces. I think I heard 27 spaces. Can somebody give me the real number?
So it's one per bedroom, not per bed. So the total parking that is required is,
Is 21. So
21.
15 from the proposed employee housing building and 6 from the.
There are 15 beds or 15 bedrooms?
bedrooms.
And they are all doubles?
no, on the first floor, they're singles. So the 3 on the first floor are singles,
So there are 12 doubles is 24.
correct? Plus 3 is 27.
And 3 is us to the 27.
But the ordinance requires it based on bedroom, not beds.
Okay. All right, let's go to the experts.
But I'm not sure you got your second question answered. How many are proposed after all the improvements and changes?
26.
26, okay.
Of which one is handicapped?
Correct.
Okay.
The lighting, you had said you'll make it complying with all the standards, the lighting around the fuel storage area. That will also include downward casting lights? the
Correct.
shields? Okay. I think they've addressed all my other questions. Thank you.
So I think you've addressed everything that was in my letter, but something that came up in this testimony before was that maybe the applicant or the people using that housing might be having bikes there. Is there any thoughts about putting bike racks out there to accommodate that?
Yeah, I mean, that hasn't been discussed as of yet, but we'll review that.
I don't know if the board may want
Okay.
to
Is that-
consider that.
Okay,
Yes.
board questions. Tom?
Yeah, just one. So I know you made some allusions to landscaping plans on both of your drawings. And the forester had questions and concerns about landscaping. So I'd like to ask if it's, assuming the applicant agrees, like some kind of condition that the forester sees these plans, because I think he has not seen these plans, is that correct?
That's not the revised plans,
The
no.
only one he has not seen would be the revised fuel storage plan, which actually is adding those 16 hollies as screening, which is what he, I believe in his letter, had asked for some screening there.
Yes, I would just ask for a
Yeah.
condition that
Sure.
these go to Mr. Linston for review and approval.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, you testified that the sewer line is sufficient to add 24 extra people, the use for 24 people. Do you have information on how big? One, how big is the sewer line? And two, what about laundry? I guess when the sewer line came up, it made me realize I didn't see any laundry in here. Is there going to be laundry in this building? You know, where will the employees do laundry?
All right, we're going back to the prior witness.
Albert Costantini. We do have laundry facilities in the basement of the 6-bedroom building, which is right across the driveway from this new proposed area. And it's a shared laundry area.
Okay, but there will be increased use, obviously, with 24 extra people. And so then you also have the extra bathroom, so just, making
Yeah,
sure you have the
yeah.
capacity.
Understood. So based on the NJDEP regs, it's proposing to have an additional 720 gallons per day, which a 4-inch lateral is suitable to handle the additional capacity.
Did we ever get an answer as to where the fire hydrant is? Would you
Yes,
have
it's
that
located in,
information?
it's.
Would you have that information?
Yeah, it's actually located between the existing, or the proposed employee housing building and this building that's located, the existing 6-bedroom building. There's a
The
hydrant
yellow-
right
the
out,
yellow
right
house,
out here.
okay.
Yeah, the yellow house, as it was described earlier.
So where is that in relation to the new fuel storage tanks? Do I have to pass the fuel storage tanks to get to the hydrant?
The fuel storage tanks are over here, and the hydrant is approximately
So you have
200
to
feet
pass.
away.
No, you
What's
come
that?
to the fuel storage tanks are past the,
Where's the entrance from Wallace?
Oh, yeah. From Wallace? All right, so yeah, so we're not passing the fuel storage tanks over here. So we're coming this way to the employee housing.
So, Mr. Chairman, this might be an unusual request, but I'd like to ask for a condition that we ask the fire chief, even if it just says no comments, but just to have something in writing that the fire chief is comfortable with, because it makes you a little uncomfortable, fuel tanks, all these people, you know, I don't.
I would like to call him in to testify if I could, but I can't.
Well, just have to submit a report, even if it's no comments, or I'm fine with it, just something, with something in writing, that he's looked at it and approved it. Or if he has comments, what are the comments? Can we do that as a
Okay, I'll
condition?
Yeah, we
That sounds fair.
usually do. Ms. Alls, any
Yes.
objection?
No objection.
Okay.
Okay. Any other, nothing else from you two? Any more from the board?
I just got,
Yes.
so under the, I don't know if this is your area or if it's the fuel tank.
Okay, yeah.
area, whatever you want to call it. Is there a retention basin under that to catch fuel should rupture or?
So the next witness can
Okay.
answer that.
Any other questions? Any questions from the public for this witness?
Oh, I'm sorry, I do have one more, Joe, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The old tanks are being removed completely?
Correct.
That's correct.
And the ground will be tested and all that
Correct.
as necessary?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions from the public? Mr. Dean?
Paul Dean, 61 Wallace Road, Summit, New Jersey. If the project merely saw the second floor renovated, that would reduce the number of employees, correct?
State that again, sorry.
If the second floor were merely renovated, that would reduce the number of housing units for the employees, is that right?
If it was renovated into what? Like-
Just renovated using the existing square footage.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, if we just used the existing square footage, we would not be able to fit the amount of rooms that we're seeking permission for here.
And that would also reduce the parking requirement then, correct?
Correct, but we comply with the parking requirement.
But
it would
that's not what
reduce
the
it-
application is.
Excuse me?
That's not what the application is.
Okay. And the person from the golf course said that they're not anticipating cars from these new employees. Is it realistic to assume that there'll be no car traffic coming in from those new employees?
Based on the testimony of Mr. Constantini on that.
And
Yeah.
are current employees using the Wallace Road entrance every morning to get in and out with their cars going into the site?
Yes, that is what Mr. Constantini said.
Thank you, that's all.
But those are
But
all,
that would
if
be
I'm
existing,
correct,
it
though,
wouldn't
aren't those, not those employees, maintenance employees, not hospitality?
Correct, correct.
Okay.
It would not change the existing condition of those employees
Okay,
coming in.
I'm just trying to get
Yep,
I
straight in
would
my mind
suggest that
who's using.
it can be any employee that goes onto the site who wants to access it from Wallace Road can access it
We'll have
anytime when the
comment
doors
section
open.
We'll have comments
later.
later, but the question, okay. I
Yes.
just wanted to clarify the question.
except on that site, there's only a golf course and a maintenance building.
Okay. Any other questions from the public is where I was. Okay. Yes, sir.
David Goodstein, Goodstein, 25 Wallace Road. I'm just wondering, how long is this project gonna take to do? I mean, are they all gonna be combined together and all done at one time? And how much heavy machinery, because I know in the past, we've had problems on Rose Lane where the road had to be replaced because there were too many trucks coming in, heavy trucks.
Mhm.
And they basically destroyed the road.
At this point, I couldn't comment on the size or the amount of trucks for construction or the timing. It is our hope that the construction, weather permitting, doesn't take more than 6 months for the renovation. Given that the fuel tanks are in a different location, there's every indication that those projects could happen simultaneously.
Okay. And the heavy machinery, how much heavy machinery? Obviously, got to bring big machinery in to take those tanks out, right?
There would be excavation equipment and and trailers to remove those tanks. I'm not a contractor, so I couldn't opine on the size of the trucks.
Okay, because I know in the past, they've had to leave those trailers out in the road.
Okay, that's commentary, we'll get to that, I promise.
All right.
But the other question would be repair of damage, if there were any to public property, would be handled by your insurance company, I assume, or the contractors.
Yes.
Any other questions from the public? Seeing none and looking at the clock, I think it's time for our 9 o'clock recess, and we'll be back here in 7 minutes.
Perfect, thank you.
We are back in session, and we move on to your next witness.
Okay, Josvinder Arjani. Oh, yes, if you want to just pass. So this is Exhibit A7. It's again revised based on the new location of the fuel storage tanks.
You and I share, and that way they can. Okay, we're going to share, so you'll have some left for the other, for the.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
My name is Jaswinder Arjani, Arjani, last name.
Thank you. Can you briefly describe your background, experience, and 3 boards you've appeared before recently?
Sure. I'm a licensed, I'm a registered architect in state of New Jersey since 2009. I have 34 years of experience in this profession. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in architecture, and I think I did state the address. So it's Burton Engineering. I'm employed with Burton Engineering for last 22 years. The address is 66 Glen Avenue, Glen Rock, New Jersey.
And 3 boards you've appeared before recently?
Not in front of this board, but I've testified in front of various boards for last 15 years. To name a few, Mawa, Fairlawn, Freehold, Rochelle Park, Union, Parsippany.
Thank you. Any questions from the board, or would you like to accept his credentials? I understand this is...
Questions?
Is there a difference between licensed and registered, or is that just what he referred to?
For architects, it's registered architect, RA.
Okay,
So that's it, but it's the same thing.
okay.
But you have a license, and it's in good standing in the state of New Jersey.
Yes, and
Okay.
in terms of, as I am an architect and I have worked on various retail projects, but many of them include retail
Okay.
and fleet fueling. And I have worked on above ground storage tanks recently for JCP&L, Atlantic City Electric, Dapper Inc. for bus,
Okay.
and many others.
We accept your credentials and move ahead with your attorney. We'll begin the questioning.
Sure. Can you explain what steps you took to prepare for your testimony?
I conferred with the Canoe Brook Club, also the contractor who's licensed for installation of such projects. They are licensed from the NJDEP. With them, professionals, part of the team, and within our own office, as per the construction codes, NFPA, the fire protection codes, the ordinance, and I've visited the site, and based on all these, the plans were prepared.
Okay, Mr. Smith just testified with regard to the updated location of the 2 above-ground storage tanks, the landscaping and the lighting. Using the filed plans, can you describe for the board the specifics of the above-ground storage tank layout?
Sure. So the plan set that was submitted by our office has 6 drawings in it. 2 of them are tank. The last 4 are the construction drawings for construction permits. 2 are for the tank plans, and the last 2 are electric. The first 2 are prepared for the site plan application, which shows the setback. And the drawing that was the exhibit A7 that is provided to you is revision to drawing C2.1, which is the AST location plan. The tanks were originally proposed a little bit to the east to where this exhibit shows, And based on recent discussion and how it was affecting the parking in that area, the tanks have been relocated. It does not affect how the tank arrangement was on the original plan, so I will use that to testify to the tank itself. And it does not affect to the fuel truck delivery circulation path as well, the change to the location of the tank. To start with, the existing underground storage tank is 8,000 gallons. It's over 30 years old. It's a split.
Together. Like, it's 6,000 and 2,000, right?
It's 8,000 split in two compartments. So it's 2,000 gallon.
So it's a single tank split?
Correct.
Okay. That's
And-
new testimony.
That's what I've been told. I've not.
Okay.
So anyway, it'll
But
be.
it's being removed.
It's being removed. There are two dispensers and islands, and all associated piping will be removed. The tank removal is also done by a state licensed contractor, so they are specialized in this field. And an LSRP will oversee the removal, will test the soil around it and the removal of tanks, and it'll be disposed of in accordance with the NJDP regulations to the facilities where they can be sent to. Now, the new above-ground storage tank facility will have two 2,000-gallon above-ground tanks. They are double-walled steel tanks. They are fire guard rated for 2-hour fire protection. The outer and inner layer is steel with the inside filling of an fire insulation. The tank diameter is 64 inches, which sits on a saddle, and the top of the tank would be approximately 6'4" or 6.5 feet from the concrete slab. The tank will be placed on a concrete slab 10 inches thick. Two saddles will be anchored to the slab, and grounding will be provided at the saddles for any electric. That's a code requirement for tanks, grounding. There are two dispensers proposed, which is towards the drive side, and the tank and dispensers are protected with 6-inch concrete-filled pipe bollards in accordance with the NFPA requirements, and they are placed 5 feet from the tank, and their spacing is 4 feet on center. The setbacks of the tanks from the property line are testified to with the revision, it's 786 feet to the property line at the closest, and to the building, it will be 61.9 feet. That's the maintenance building that's closest to the tanks. If you want me to refer to the plans to describe this, I can, but just to mention other things installed in the tank field area is a spill kit, which will have a boom and pillows just in case of any spill. It can be used to immediately address that. And electrically, it will be tied into the existing panels and the fuel management system. There'll be emergency stops and alarms installed outside the building. And the tank itself will have on top a fill where the tank will be filled when delivery comes, and with an overfill protection, a level gauge, emergency vents, and a pump that will pump the fuel out of the tank to the dispenser.
Can you just discuss some of the benefits of the above ground versus the underground storage tank?
Correct. So the first benefit is to remove a 30-year-old installation, which is not as per current standards, and install new fueling system which will meet the current standards and in fact exceed. Most of the standards are driven by insurance companies, so the new installations will meet all the current code requirements. That is the first benefit of the change. This above-ground storage tanks, as was mentioned earlier, are easier to inspect because it's visible above ground and quicker to access for maintenance and repair. in response time to any leak, if observed, is much quicker. They are environmental friendly in terms of the coatings required for underground storage tanks. Some of them are not required for above ground storage tank. They have longer lifespans, and for that reason, they could be reused if it was decommissioned here.
Great, and then can you just, referring to A7, go through the proposed grading of that berm?
Right. On the exhibit that you have on top right, there is a grading window. In the dash, can you hear this? Yeah, and on the dash lines.
I don't think it's on.
Is it on? Yeah, okay. So the top right of the sheet has a window of showing the tank location and grading around it. At the bottom, which is I would say the south side, let's say, it's paved and it's flat, it slopes towards the east side. And on the north, east, and west, there's a berm. So the tank is tucked into the berm. And the berm would be modified along keeping the high point roughly what it is. So it makes the inside towards the tank side a little bit steeper than what it is today. Other than that, if you look at the bottom of the tank is in line with the berm, so it hides the tank completely. And as Mr. Smith testified to, there'll be shrubs on top, evergreen, which are 6 to 8 feet tall. So the berm is approximately 4 feet tall. With the shrubs, it's approximately 10 foot of screening, and the tank is only 6.5 feet tall.
Perfect, I don't have any other questions.
Gentlemen, our professionals.
Just one question regarding the spill containment. It's actually a double-walled tank,
Correct.
and there's actually alarm systems within that double-walled tank?
Yes, the interstitial space is monitored as well. Yeah.
Is that connected to any other alarm system within the facility?
No, it's its own alarm.
Okay, it
Yeah.
has its own audible alarm?
Correct.
With sound?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. No further question.
Is the fueling system the same as it is right now? Is there like an employee key card that comes up, or what kind of protections are there for people
No,
dispensing?
I believe the existing system has a lock on it, and the lock is removed in the morning, and employees can access that, and it's locked after hours. And there is a camera monitoring the location. But besides that, as I understand, they do not have any additional measures to, like there's no card or there's no another system to monitor that or control that.
So
And
the-
the proposed would be the same.
So you're saying that the system that was in place before will continue to be in place?
Correct,
And that was
yes.
working before?
Yes.
There were no issues with that?
Correct.
Okay, all right. And that, basically this, people will access the circulation, they will access the fuel tanks the same way they did before?
Exactly the
Similar?
same way, because if you look at the circulation part on the exhibit, the bottom, the above-ground storage tank is in front of the maintenance building, and it's just shifting it further east, but otherwise it's the same circulation path.
Okay, all right. And I had made a comment on my letter asking for testimony about the grading and where that was being put, but I recognize that you've moved it, and that has changed some of the grading, and it's less impactful to
Correct.
what was originally on this
Yes,
plan before.
because the earlier location was requiring us to remove that section of the berm. Now it's tucked into the berm, so the berm side becomes steeper, but the berm is intact. Also, although it's very marginal, the impervious coverage addition is reduced with this location.
All right, thank you.
Ed?
Oh, that's all the questions I have.
Okay. Tom?
Yeah, just following up on Ed's question, one of his questions, I actually asked a similar question. The alarm system, so there's an audible alarm on the fuel tanks that,
The alarm is on the building, which is closest edge of with the fuel stop there. Yes.
Would it be advisable, or is it required maybe, or would it be advisable to have a separate alarm actually inside the residential building, just to make sure that the residents there know if, God forbid, there's a leak or a fire with the fuel tanks? Is that something that might be advisable?
It's not really required, and the residential building is quite a distance away.
Yeah, I know I was there today, but I
Yeah.
forget how far apart they
Yeah.
are.
I think it's
Approximately how?
284.
Yeah.
How many?
284
It was that
feet,
much?
I
Okay.
think.
Okay.
In my opinion, it's really not necessary, but
Okay. Thought it was closer.
So okay, but if it's that far away, is the alarm going to be heard?
it's not for the residents, it's a maintenance building, and also it's linked to a fuel management system which sends information to it's electronically.
Will the fire department be notified that all of a sudden we got a leak and we got to go?
Fire department, I don't know if really would react to a leak if there was a fire.
This is like a leak, like if you had an underground
Yeah.
tank
Storage
and it
tank
was
that's leaking,
leaking
I know.
into the ground, it's just letting you know that you need to service your
And
tank.
typically with double wall tanks, the idea is to catch the leak before it comes out of the second layer, because the interstitial space is monitored. So if there's a leak in the inner layer, it's caught before it gets out. So
Okay.
hopefully there would be no leaks. That's the premise at which it's planned, designed for.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
Sure, yeah.
Yes, sir.
So back to this alarm. So no one's monitoring it at all?
No, it goes into a fuel management system
Who
and.
monitors that?
It's usually, I don't know what the plan is, their plan for tanks they referred to earlier. Is there a? But usually there's a contractor on site, and they come and inspect every, I don't know what intervals they come and inspect that.
I have a feeling you know more about this than
More than I ever wanted to, sir. Albert Costantini again. We will work with the contractor installing the tank to have that internal alarm to be able to send an alarm to our professional, our Director of Grounds, Rob Shipper, who would be able to receive that alarm in addition to the audible alarm.
Do you have a security office on site?
We do.
Could that be a secondary
That could be a
site?
secondary as well.
'Cause
Yes.
it's,
Yeah, they're 24/7,
Yeah.
and they're constantly going around the properties, so we could have it sent to them, yes.
it's nice to have the alarm, but it's better to have somebody monitor it, because if it doesn't
Absolutely.
goes off and nobody sees it, it's kind of.
Would you accept that as a condition?
Yes.
Yes.
And then the other question I had, which I guess is for you, I know it's a double wall tank, but when they're filling it up, the walls of the tank really don't don't help much. So if there's a spill from the top and it goes down to the ground, is there anything to catch it underneath so it doesn't permeate the ground?
The fill itself is, when the truck delivers, the hose is locked to a pipe, and then with the fuel, there is an overfill alarm and overfill valve, which stops the flow of fuel if it was not stopped. And then the delivery man would remove that, and if there was any drips, there is a bucket that catches those drips. So the system is designed not to overflow.
He pumps it in from the tanker?
No,
Is it gravity fed?
correct. No, it's on top. Yeah,
Yeah, so it has to be pumped up.
correct.
So, back to my question. If that hose disconnects, or the guys, it's 2 o'clock, I don't know what time you get deliveries, but let's say it's 2 o'clock delivery at night, and probably not gonna happen, but let's just use it, amuse me. Guy doesn't connect it up right, spills 150 gallons of fuel, is there something to catch it?
No, there is no third containment underneath proposed right now.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
One more. I'm looking at your path of travel here.
Mm-hmm.
In front of the fuel pumps, are there not parking spaces to the right of the fuel pump? Am I mistaken? Wasn't there, didn't you guys say there were parking spaces to the right?
Yeah, there
There's
are,
four.
when we had the plan, it was not shown, so we can update the plan and we'll show that it'll work without the
I don't
impacting the
understand.
parking space.
So there are parking spaces there, so really this flow, the path flow is not really
Yeah.
accurate.
Yeah.
No, the path flow is accurate. If you bring up the, and you go in right in front.
Are there parking spaces there? Isn't that why you moved it?
You're right that the parking spaces when we prepared this are not shown. Yeah, are not shown, so.
If I can ask the witness to use the microphone, please.
So you're right that the parking spaces are there, and we will update the truck to demonstrate it'll work without.
And you used the, how long is this truck?
This is SU-40. It's like a box truck.
So have you done it for any of the fire apparatus that the city has?
No, we've not prepared for fire.
Okay, thank you.
We can prepare one.
I think we should know that the fire department can get there.
I'm sure they can,
I mean, it's
but
not
it's
changing
usually,
They
Some-
wouldn't go around,
Yeah.
they would just go directly right to
directly and
the-
back out, yeah.
it depends,
I think this all goes into the request to the fire chief.
yeah.
The proposal is not changing the path.
Well, my point is if there's cars parked in those parking spots,
Right.
this flow path's not gonna, this travel path's not gonna work. Right?
For the,
For any truck.
no, it's not park, it's. for
Take the microphone with you, sir.
If I'm wrong, I apologize, but I thought there were 4 spaces or 2 spaces there?
Yeah, I'll refer to the, Mr. Smith's exhibit earlier. If
Those are parking spots.
these are being removed, these 4,
Or they're being removed,
these.
or they're being added.
Just these 4 are the ones that are staying, back here, 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'll let Mr. Smith come and testify to that.
Okay, confuse us some more.
Sorry.
Hi, Kyle Smith. So the 4 parking spaces will remain. They're the 4 right here, 1, 2, the 4 to the north. So you are correct, the path needs to be revised to reflect that.
But is there still enough space to go around if those 4 are
You
there?
could go that way, yeah.
Yeah,
That's not the path you show, though.
but that's, that, correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Yes, sir.
Joe Wagner, 7 Wallace Road. Just follow-up question from Mr. Nelson. If there's a leak, I'm driving a backhoe and accidentally puncture a gas tank or a diesel tank, there's nothing to contain that? There's no wall around this, the tank, the pad, it's just a pad and ground? So there's nothing contain that leak?
No, the system, the tanks itself is a double wall tank, and that's what the state requires. And second layer of tank, outside layer, works as a containment. The space between the 2 tanks is monitored. So the leak is caught before the outside tank.
If I accidentally drive a backhoe or something into it and puncture the tank and it leaks, or the hose leaks, it's just going on the ground and running down the driveway?
There's a row of 6-inch pipe bollards 5 feet from the tank installed for that reason, that no vehicle.
So there is containment then? So-
No. I'm saying that there's vehicle protection to the tank, so no car or truck can
Okay.
get close to the tank. If you see you have the, sorry,
I don't have-
I'll show you here, but it's on your exhibit. There is
You have to use the microphone,
Wait,
sir.
wait,
I'm
carry it.
sorry.
There's a handheld one.
I
Carry it.
apologize. Yeah, there is this little circles all around. They are pipe bollards, 6-inch thick, concrete filled steel pipes that will prevent from any car, truck,
Protects the tanks from a
vehicle. Correct.
but it doesn't address a leak from.
No, you mentioned that if something hits the tank.
accommodation. If something leaks out of ground, it could still spread if the hose breaks and the guy's pumping fuel out.
I mean, if the systems today are designed not, like if the hose comes off the dispenser, it automatically shuts off. So if someone were to drive away with the hose and it snaps out of the dispenser, the fueling will shut off right away. It doesn't spill. Things have improved
Okay.
over time.
One other question, I'm not sure, this is sort of a backwards question. In the dorm rooms, are they going to be allowed to have microwaves, hot plates, or anything like that?
Now, as I've testified previously, there's no cooking in the building.
Okay, and the employees would know they can't do
Yes.
anything? Okay.
Yes.
No popcorn in the TV room.
Pre-bag.
Any other questions from the public? Is where we are. Seeing none, we'll go to your last witness.
witness, yes, the planner, McKinley Martz.
Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
Sure. McKinley Mertz, M-E-R-T-Z. I'm a principal planner at Higher Gruel and Associates.
Thank you. And can you just briefly describe your background and experience for the board, please?
Sure. I have a master's in city and regional planning from the Blaustein School at Rutgers University. I have the New Jersey professional planning license as well as the national AICP certification. I have testified in front of boards before. I was in front of this board about 1.5 years ago for a townhouse development on the other side of town. I have also testified nearby-ish in front of Wayne, South Orange, Elmwood Park, and I serve as a planner on 10 different boards across the state, including both the Planning and Zoning Board with your neighbor, New Providence, and Miss Raffay next door.
Any questions from the board, or would you like to accept her once again?
Seeing no objections, let's move on.
Yep, okay, so if you could just again explain the steps you took to prepare yourself to give expert planning testimony in this matter.
Sure. I reviewed all of the plans that have been presented to you tonight and attended team meetings with all of our other professionals to hear their testimony outlines ahead of time. I conducted a site visit on October 30th where Albert was nice enough to give me a tour of the facility, including the locations of both the fuel tanks that we're reviewing tonight and the staff housing. I have reviewed the city's master plan documents, the 2000 master plan and 2016 re-exam, as well as your current land use ordinance, all standards within it, specifically the Gulf zone that we are within.
Great, and I would just ask you to go through your presentation.
Sure. Just as a reminder, we're here tonight for 2 different D1 use variances, the first being the staff housing. As has been testified to, we're proposing 12 additional rooms to an existing building for a total of 15 rooms. That will add 24 beds for a total of 27 beds within the building. As a resident previously asked, and as our team has talked to already, that is not a permitted use within the Gulf zone. The only permitted uses within the Gulf zone are golf courses. Second use variance associated with our application tonight is for the 2 above-ground storage tanks, each 2,000 gallons, going down from a combined 8,000 gallon system that was just testified to by my predecessor. We do require 1 bulk variance tonight for the height of the building that the staff housing is in. Accessory buildings in this zone are permitted to be 1 story or 15 feet. The existing building is 2 stories, 34.42 feet. We are maintaining 2 stories, but that is going down to 33.87 feet with a new roof structure being put on to lower that ridge just slightly. Your planner called out 1 additional bulk variance associated with accessory buildings where no principal building is permitted. That is a prohibited condition in your zone. It's our opinion that that was addressed during the 2005 application since this building is existing, but just to make sure that the record is clear, I'll address it again tonight. So moving on to the planning proofs that are directed to us by the municipal land use law for D variances. I'm sure you all are no stranger to those, and it is late, so I will try to be brief. Part of the positive criteria associated with D variances is that we need to demonstrate to you that in particular cases and in particular reasons, the variances that we are requesting are justified and advance the purposes of zoning.
Again, we have to demonstrate that the proposal will advance those purposes through special reasons, and I'll get into what that means in a second. Part of our burden of proof is to prove to you that the site is particularly suited for the uses that we are presenting in front of you tonight. To start with the staff housing use, it is my opinion that the site is particularly suited for staff housing, more specifically because there has been staff housing on this site since 2005. We have almost 20 years of experience with that, and we have, I was not around in 2005, but my understanding from from Albert and the other current professionals there is that there has not been problems associated with that staff housing, and any problems that may have arisen early on have certainly been fleshed out in the last 20 years. So we have 20 years of proven experience that this site is suitable and can accommodate staff housing units here. Additionally, the staff housing is very specific to a golf course use. Typically in a D1 use variance, it's not as the applicant's burden of proof to show that there are not other suitable sites in town, but just that our site is particularly suited. However, I would argue here that this use is completely 100% particularly suited for a golf course use. It really is accessory in nature to the golf course, as was testified by the operator. It is becoming more common in golf courses across not just New Jersey, but the country. I did my own research and looked up the National Golf Course Association and stumbled across an article from June of this year where this is a national problem, needing to provide housing for employees as there are housing crises all over the country. It is an accessory use that was not planned for in your ordinance because I believe it is a little newer than in the past. But again, it is appropriate for our golf course use, and I would not argue, I would say it's not appropriate for a majority of the other uses that are permitted in your town. Again, making this site and the principal use here particularly suited for our proposed staff housing. Again, because of the nature of the staff that will be housed here, they're more transient and mostly seasonal. We have testimony tonight that the stays will be between 6, 9, and 12 months. It really wouldn't be appropriate or feasible for most of those individuals to seek housing from a traditional rental where it would be a 1-year lease where they might not need that full lease. I'll touch on this a little bit later, but I would also argue that even though you cannot assign these units to at your obligation for affordable units, I do believe that they contribute to the overall affordability of the town and the region, and I'll come back to that. Also, the building in question is existing over 400 feet away. Just as a reminder, we're in football season. A football field is 360 feet in length. We are far exceeding that. So if you can picture how far that is, it's quite a ways away. We did submit photos as part of this application taken from Wallace, and there was arrows identifying the improvements. And from those photos, you cannot see, or you can hardly see, I should say, either of the improvements. The site is also suitable for the fuel tanks as proposed. Again, these are accessory to the golf course and needed for the function and efficiency of the course. They are replacing outdated and dangerous tanks that have existed underground for many years. The previous testimony indicated that the above-ground tanks will be safer as they will be more easily accessible in case of leaks or other potential emergencies that might arise. You do not have to go underground to access them. The positive criteria associated with our C variance, and again, it's the height of the accessory building that is triggering our C variance relief. It's my opinion that variance can be justified under the C1, what we call the hardship variance, that the strict application of your regulations would result in a hardship associated with developments to the site. The reason for that is that the structure is existing. It has been there, like I said, for nearly 25 years. We are, though, slightly lowering that height. So we are ever so slightly bringing that non-conforming height towards conformance. In order to be conforming with your ordinance, a demolition and entire rebuild would be required, and it would be my argument that that wouldn't be an appropriate alternative, as it wouldn't be sustainable. I never recommend we always say the most sustainable building is an existing building because it takes up fewer resources to have to reconstruct. Same, my argument would be the same for the other variants that your planner called out about there being an accessory building on a site where there is no principal structure. We do have a principal structure, it just happens to be in Milburn. Given the nature of golf courses, I would argue that the course itself really also doubles and acts not just as a use, but almost as a structure. But again, my testimony would be that the building is existing and has existed for 25 years, so we are not changing that condition associated with it. For both the D variances and the C variances, we have to demonstrate that special reasons exist for granting those variances, and case law tells us that those special reasons are derived from purposes of the municipal land use law. So if you'll bear with me, we have purpose A is to promote and enhance public safety and promote the general welfare. There's a number of items associated with our presentation tonight that does support safety and the general welfare. The first being the restriping of the parking spaces in front of the staff housing. It's during my site visit, I noticed there was a lot of haphazard parking happening there. This is going to clearly identify where cars should go when they are there, where they should park, and we are adding an ADA space which has not existed up until now. So we will be bringing that condition into more conformity. Additionally, as was testified to by myself and the other experts, the above-ground tanks are far safer than the below-ground tanks. The impetus for this was also the DEP and the EPA are requiring Canoe Brook Country Club to eliminate and replace those below-ground tanks. So this will be a safer alternative. We're also adding additional stormwater management techniques that do not currently exist on the site. So I don't have to tell you as a zoning board, any addition to stormwater control for a site with impervious coverage is a benefit. Purpose G is to provide sufficient space and appropriate locations for a variety of uses, including residential and recreational. Again, we are expanding staff housing for a very particular type of residential use, and the existence of that staff housing is going to support the recreational use of the country club that has been there for over 120 years. Finally, purpose I is to promote a desirable visual environment through creative development and good civic design. As could be seen by the rendering that was presented by our architect, the building is going to go through a substantial facelift, I'll call it. It is my opinion that what is being proposed is going to be much nicer than what exists now. The rendering appears to be more of a carriage home feel, whereas the current building very much looks like a storage building. Even though this building won't be seen by anybody except those living there or the occasional golfer who drives by, it is a substantial improvement. And the above-ground fuel tanks are being constructed in such a manner so as they are pushed into the existing berm to help with screening of them. And also they're positioned in a way that preserves as many parking spaces as was feasible. The negative criteria we have to present to you, we must demonstrate that granting the relief will not cause a substantial detriment to the public good, nor will it substantially impair your zoning plan, which is your master plan, or your zoning ordinance. The 2000 master plan recognizes the Canoe Brook Country Club as an existing golf course and really aims to preserve it with the proper shielding in place from the neighboring residentials. Again, it's my opinion that our proposed changes are consistent with many goals and objectives, as your planner laid out a few in his memo, specifically to promote the development of a variety of housing types and offer a diversity of housing. This is where I think the affordable housing broader discussion comes in. By providing housing for our transient staff members, they are not taking away other housing units that are available in town for more long-term residents, and they will be coming in on visas that would probably not support a salary that would really allow them to live close by. So they are being provided housing that is affordable, and they are not taking away from other housing units in town. I would agree with what your planner said previously in the conversation that happened. It would be great if this type of development could be attributed towards the affordable housing conversation and obligation in New Jersey. I won't go into much detail about that because I'm sure all of the planners in this room could talk about that for a very long time, but I do think that we contribute to the broader affordability of the region with this. Also, to balance growth and development opportunities with the established pattern of development. It's a very established country club. Again, we've been here for over 120 years, I think it was. And this is going to allow the country club to grow in a way that will not have a detriment to the surrounding area. Which leads me to my last couple points, which is that we will not be an impairment to the zoning ordinance. Both of these are accessory uses that were likely not considered when the golf zone was first created. I couldn't find the original date of the adoption, but It's been my understanding from the applicant and from my own research that these are uses that are becoming much more prevalent. As the previous professional noted, the above-ground storage tanks are now becoming the standard as they are safer. Technology has improved greatly. Finally, it's my opinion there will be no substantial detriment to the public good. The conditions on Wallace and Woodlawn Avenue are not going to change. The testimony is that the likelihood of a resident or one of the staff employees coming on these visas to have cars will be very minimal. If they do, they will be directed towards the Milburn side and the main gate, which is how they handle their current staff that is living here already. There's no reason that will change. There will be no change in any deliveries because those will still be put forth at the Milburn side, which is how it is today. Same with any Ubers, same with Lyfts. And a unique characteristic about Canoe Brook Country Club is how it is accessed. Immediately from the turnpike, but from Route 24 right there, nobody ever has to go through a residential neighborhood to get to that main gate. You're right off the highway. So again, all of the testimony tonight supports that Woodlawn and Wallace, there will be no change in circumstance to either of those roads. Finally, just to make notes that all of these improvements are internal to the site. They are significant distances from any of the neighboring residents. And again, I think that all of the improvements here will be an improvement to the recreation of the golf club and will not have a detriment on the neighborhood. And I am happy to answer any questions.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Very complete. With regard to the special reasons, can you speak to the general welfare as far as how the site is particularly well suited for the intensification of the use itself? I think you talked about the impact to adjacent roadways and access to the site, but just overall with regard to its location, its proximity to other residential properties.
Sure. So as can be seen with the aerial image that is up here, and is this on? Okay. I know this is it's a line drawing, so it's a little bit hard to see, but the existing area that's lightened here is the existing disturbed area. As we testified to, the increase in impervious coverage is going to be very minimal, so when we're talking about the intensity of the use, they maintain over 470 feet away from the entrance, the current entrance to Wallace Road, and well over 1,000 feet to Woodlawn, which also has a small entrance there. Because of the way the Canoe Brook already controls how their employees access the site, and the testimony was that these new employees will be always going up to the clubhouse. They're hospitality, they're not maintenance staff, so they don't need to stay at the maintenance facility, which is here. During the day, they will be headed to other parts of the golf course. They will have absolutely no need to utilize those two access points. So any intensity of the site, any additional use of the site that might come from these new staff members are all going to be pushed up to the Milburn side. They're not going to have any kind of impact to the Summit side here. I keep calling out Wallace and Woodlawn. I know there are other roads here, but those are the two that create our boundaries. So any intensity, all of the new intensity, again, they're going to go through this path up towards the other side of the site. So it is my opinion that the additional increase in intensity here is really going to have no impact on Summit. Milburn will bear it all. They might not like me saying that, but that is the truth. Did that answer their question?
It did. And also wanted to point out that access occurs through an actual path that goes underneath I-24.
Correct. Yes. They don't have to cross over any roadways.
It's actually a physical connection.
And I rode underneath it. It's very convenient and easy to go back and forth there.
No further questions. Thank you.
I have no questions for this witness.
Okay.
I have a question. Earlier, someone testified that there are 275 to 300 employees now, and that that's probably going to increase to 350. But we're talking about adding housing for 24 employees. And then you mentioned, you said that these improvements will allow the country club to grow. Can you explain what you mean by allowing it to grow? You know,
Sure, and I'll have to defer to the previous witness about the overall number of employees, because I can't speak to that. But when I say grow, what I mean from that is they have a need for these employees. That's why they want to build this housing. So there is additional, and they're going to have to talk to the operations about what these employees would be doing on a day-to-day basis. But they currently are understaffed. They need help with I'm going to call it the front of the house for lack of a better term, because I know a little bit more about the restaurant world, but those front of the house activities up on the Milburn side at the clubhouse. And they, obviously this golf course is not going to grow in square footage. The golf course is what it is, and it's fully surrounded, but they do continue to offer additional services to all of their members who come, and to have the additional seasonal staff would lessen the burden on some of their existing staff. And so when I say grow, I don't mean a physical footprint growth. I mean grow in what they are able to do and the level of service they are able to provide to their members. The more employees, the better service they're going to be able to have towards their members.
well, is there any, because going from 50 to 75 more employees, that was what the testimony was, but adding 26 parking spaces, that's not enough parking for the other, doesn't seem to be enough parking, but also, is part of the growing increasing membership too? Because if that's where this all,
Right. If I could just interrupt just for 1 second. It's not proposed that there's 50 to 70 more employees that are going to be on the Summit site. There's only proposed to be an additional 24 employees.
Not living, working was the question, from 275 to 300 employees now, and it's going to be moving to 350 employees. That was
Potentially, but I think Albert could clarify.
And I think
that.
it's two different things, I think, that were happening.
So we feel when we do our studies that we are optimally performing our best for the members at 350 employees. And where we are deficient currently is in the food and beverage staff, clubhouse staff. So front of the house, servers, bussers, bartenders, banquet servers, that sort of position. So these 24 beds are in an effort to get us closer to where we want to be. Certainly, it's not everything we need to get, but it does get us significantly closer. The growth of the business is we currently have to limit, say, the amount of reservations we take on a given night because of the amount of staff we have on the floor. The more staff we have on the floor, the more reservations we can take. We are not looking to increase the size of the membership. We are, by our bylaws, restricted in the number of members we can have, and we are at that number. We take in new members every month because we have attrition. So it's, our new members are replacing members that are either moving away or passing away, and we maintain an even number of members that are dictated by our bylaws. Does that
Thank
answer
you.
the question?
Okay, any other questions?
I have a
from the board?
question.
Yes,
Just-
sir.
Just as you think about substantial detriment, we're basically doubling or over doubling the number of people who are actually living, staff that are living on the course, right, on the property. And today, I think all 3 bedrooms are first floor, right? So now this is going to be 24 people living on a second floor. I've heard that there's a limitation that like guests have to leave by 11 o'clock, but just thinking about neighbors who are a football field plus away, what's that experience going to be like for them? Lights are on up till what time? Music, guests up till 11 o'clock potentially. I know these are going to be hardworking individuals who are probably, but still, as you think through it, if I'm a neighbor, like, what impact could that have on me?
Understand the question. Both in the Milburn and the Summit side currently, all of our residents sign a residential agreement that gives the different rules. No guests after 11 p.m., no loud music. The 24-hour security we have monitors, actually our director of security is in charge of all of the employee rooms. So it is part of the security staff that they monitor all of the employee housing units. So There are noise restrictions, there are guest restrictions, there are dining restrictions, there will be traffic restrictions on the South Course. A neighbor asked me on break, what if they don't abide by the rules? Well, then they don't work for us. They're terminated and they're basically sent home. If they're in violation of their H-2B or J-1 visa, then they're returned home. So it is the fact that they're all here working to generate income for their lives. They're not going to put that at risk by behaving poorly. And if they are, they're taken care of immediately. Does that answer the question?
So you might as well stay there for a second.
I just want to add also to that, because I think you had a question about lighting as well. And the building is, and I'm assuming this was part of the presentation in 2005 and how they chose to orient this building. It is short, the shortest side of the building is what's facing towards the residential neighborhood, so it is perpendicular. And as can be seen in the renderings here, there's only 2 windows that face that side. So, and the only lighting that's going to be added is emergency lighting. So from a lighting perspective, I don't think they're going to see this hardly at all. And I do believe that the landscaping that's being planted will eventually grow tall enough that that whole side of the building is going to be screened completely.
Thank you.
So I'm just gonna throw a scenario out here at you. So I have a friend that lives there, and I go to the house, and it's, I get there around 9 o'clock at night. Do I park on the Milburn side, and you drive me over to the house, or do I go through the Wallace Road entrance?
You come through the Milburn side.
Okay, so then when I leave, I have to go back that way too?
Correct.
Now, how about all the employees, same thing?
Excuse me?
All the employees. If I'm an employee and I want to go out at 11 o'clock at night,
Okay.
and do I have to call up for the
Yes. Yes,
golf cart?
security, if it's after hours, security will come. If it's during hours, we have transportation, whether it be a golf cart or a multi-person vehicle
So-
that can transport.
Are there any employees now that live in that yellow house that have a vehicle?
In the yellow house,
Is
yes,
it still yellow? Okay.
yes.
Yeah. Good. How many of them have cars?
Currently, I would say, I think probably no more than 3, if I'm just gonna turn around and look. 2 to 3,
Okay.
max, yeah.
And how do those cars get out after 9 o'clock?
They're part of the grounds maintenance staff that we say goes in and out of Wallace.
That was
Yes.
part
So
of the
they
20.
can get out of
That's-
Wallace after hours?
That's part of the 20. Not after 9:30.
They want to get out at 11 o'clock, I got to go to the hospital, and
They-
Well, it's an emergency situation,
or I
we're
have to go.
calling emergency services.
I have to go to the hotel to pick up my friend.
Okay, then they're going out.
Got to get out. How am I getting out? I have a car, how
A
am
ve-
I going
well,
to get out?
A vehicle can, that time of night, can traverse through the golf course, go through the tunnel, and go out
Okay,
Milburn.
I never knew
Because,
whether or not the
gate
hotel
is
took a
closed
car.
on-
Okay.
Just
Other
as a
que-
reminder, that condition's existing today and not changing and not proposing to be intensified.
Right.
Proposing to be intensified, but-
Any other board questions? Okay, any public questions for
The
this?
Wallace gate closes at 9:30.
Period.
Yes.
Period.
Questions from the public? Questions for this witness, yes.
Hi, Jennifer Jonas, 41 Wallace Road.
Hi.
The question is probably to both of you. It seems like your testimony and support, and yours as well, is contingent on this international visa program. A lot of the seasonal, the parking, all of it kind of seems dependent on that. But is there a plan in place for this? Do we have any idea if it's gonna be, you are gonna be successful in, entered into that program, or that there's gonna be anyone? Because it feels like to put up, a housing unit for 24 people and have no idea if it's you're even gonna be accepted is a big risk.
Yes, it is, and we're looking to spend quite a large amount of money on this project in an effort to make that program work. I can't guarantee that I'm going to fill every bed with an H-2B or J-1 visa employee. It is our wish, it is our desire, it's our plan to do that, but I can't stand here and guarantee that it will be. If it's not, and it's filled by someone in New Jersey or in surrounding area from New Jersey, they will be subject to the same rules as anyone else, where if they have a car, it stays on the Millburn side in the employee parking lot. There's no travel in and out of the Wallace Road entrance for them. Does that answer?
Yeah, and then I just had one more question for you. You mentioned, I can't remember exactly what you said, but that Newburgh had a history of 20 plus.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? All right. You mentioned somewhere in there that Newburgh had a history of staffing and having success at it, but don't you see the difference of going from 3 to 27 significant enough to not really have a history to base that off of?
That's a good question. So yes, what I said was the staffing in this house was put in 2005, so that was where the about almost 20 years came into play. And so my point was that while we are intensifying the use, they have existing experience with staff living at this particular location, abiding by these rules that we have spoken to tonight, and have had success with that over the last 20 years. So there's other parts of my testimony that touched on the intensity of it, but just the sheer use of a residential at this location has proven success over the last 2+ decades.
And if I could just clarify, there's actually 9 employees that live on site right now.
Right, the 6 in the other house.
Right, and then in Millburn, they also have employee housing, so they've had that for years, so they have seen how that's been working.
Right, but don't you see that as a significant increase that could garner some changes or some implications, putting 24 presumably young people on one floor and with, no kitchen and seemingly like a prison, not be able to get out as an issue?
Well, again, as I've testified previously, it's not a prison. They can come and go as they please. And again, as I've testified before, they are told what the restrictions are up front. They agree to it, they sign off on it, and if they don't abide by it, then they're not working for us and living there any longer.
I understand that, but
Yeah.
to say that there's a history of that doesn't seem in earnest, because it's a big difference
Well,
from 3 in one house to 27.
Well, that's just in the one location. We have the 6 employees across, and then we have another 12 beds on the Millburn side that are all subject to the same rules. And we've had success for that for over 25 years. So I don't anticipate that being an issue.
Any other questions from the public for this witness? Paul?
Paul Dean, 61 Wallace Road, Summit, New Jersey. So you've indicated that you need 2 use variances today, is that correct?
Correct.
And the use variances are the hardest to get, isn't that also correct?
Correct.
Do you know if the actual notice of the meeting actually says use variance in it anywhere?
I would have to defer to our legal counsel. I did not write it.
It doesn't. It refers to the ordinance, 70D1.
That is a use variance.
Okay, but it doesn't make clear the notification to the neighbors that we received that you're receiving a use variance.
Okay,
And so
then not the commentary questions,
And
please.
it's my opinion that
How
that's
was the-
sufficient to identify a use variance.
How was the density of this building calculated?
There's no density requirement for this zone and for several zones in the city, so there's no calculation.
Okay, that's because it's not a permitted use, correct?
Well, it's not a permitted use, but I would argue there's no density calculation anyways, so there wouldn't be a calculation to
It's
begin
not a
with.
permitted use.
Even if it was, I don't believe there would be a
Okay.
density calculation.
So the language that says modification, you don't seem too familiar with the approval, but it says, the letter says modification of prior condition of approval. That was not a use variance that was granted.
It was.
Yes, it
So
was.
if I can clarify that a little bit. When a use variance is granted for a use and then that same use comes back in to expand, which is what we are requesting tonight, we have to do the exact same process over again. So we have to seek another D1 use variance.
Okay. And I've heard this referred to as a dormitory. Are there any other dormitories in the city of Summit?
Not to my knowledge, but that was my testimony, which is why this site is particularly suited, not just for the use, but in association with the principal use it is serving, because it would likely not be appropriate anywhere else in Summit.
And the density, do you know any other building in Summit that has the density that this building would hold?
Well, to be fair, we have 125 acres, so if I were any better at math and could do that math on the spot, I could tell you it's not a high density, but I'm not familiar with the other density standards as I was focused on this zone.
Itself, that would be a very high
Density is not subject of the building, it's a matter of dividing the number of units by the number of acres, and that is a municipal land use law definition.
Okay, and we've heard talk about dormitories and number of units and vetting of people. I would assume most colleges that have dormitories vet their students, is that correct?
I can't speak to that.
And could you tell me if college students typically also work besides going to school?
I'm also not prepared to speak to that with this application.
Okay, well, you referred to it as dormitory, so, and I assume most colleges have difficulties with students who work at their dormitories.
I just
Okay.
don't see what the relevance is
I
of
think it's a
this.
completely, we're calling it a dormitory because of the building style of the architecture. We have communal living with no kitchen space and 2 people per room. So that's more associated with the architectural style. A dormitory with a college is way different from a golf course, which I'm not prepared to testify to how colleges function in relation to their dormitories. So I would agree with our counsel. I don't think it's a
How about size
relevant
the
line of,
rooms?
I think, again, I'm not here to testify to a dormitory at a college, so I have not
Well,
reviewed that.
We've heard that it's 155 without.
Okay, again, not a commentary question.
Okay.
From a planning perspective, the size of the room is not unusual for 2 people to occupy without a kitchen. But that's a planning perspective. You might have to ask the architect for more specifics on the design itself.
Okay, that's all.
Thank you. Any other public questions for this witness? If not, we move to your summation.
Okay. So, it is requested that the consolidated application be approved by the board based on the testimony presented this evening, which has demonstrated that the site is particularly suited for the employee housing use, as it is a use that has been previously approved for this site and currently exists on site. It is a common practice for golf clubs based on the current economic environment, the high rental prices, reduction in inventory, lack of transportation, and suitable affordable options, and it is in close proximity to the employment. The fuel storage tanks currently exist on site underground. The proposed above-ground tanks will hold a net reduction in fuel and, as testified to, are safer, more environmentally friendly, easier to monitor, and have a longer lifespan. The above-ground tanks also provide the ability to identify and address issues immediately, as opposed to underground where issues are usually discovered after it's too late for containment. Both of the proposed improvements advance the general welfare and numerous other purposes of zoning, as well as many goals and objectives of the master plan and re-examination reports, as just described and testified to by the planner. The benefits of the proposals far outweigh any potential detriment. Both projects are located a significant distance from the property lines and are screened by landscaping in close proximity and at the perimeter of the site, so that there will be no visual impact on the surrounding neighbors. The existing building will be aesthetically improved, the existing height is being reduced, stormwater management is proposed, there is sufficient off-street parking, and the improvements will not impact surrounding neighbors or roadways. For all of these reasons, and based on the testimony presented, it is requested that the board approve the application.
Thank you. At this point, we will open the floor to the public to tell us what they think of the project, and you'll be sworn in for that. If anyone would like to make a comment, this is now the time to do so.
If you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
Leonard Gigantino, Gigantino, 49 Wallace Road.
Thank you.
I think what we're hearing here is that somebody wants to take and triple the living space that they have here now, and they don't want their members to pay for it. So they're gonna go to some kind of a public arrangement here where their members don't have to pay.
It's cheaper for the club that way. Maybe they should add a few members. I don't know how you should get it, but if people are in business, sometimes they gotta cut their costs, sometimes they gotta raise their prices, and the club could do the same thing. They don't need to triple the amount of people that they have working there under very low wages, or under by whatever this arrangement is that they have with the government. I believe you should not allow this to go on. It's like they want to just triple the space, triple their living space, so that they don't have to spend as much money. Thank you.
Can I just ask Albert to come
No,
back?
just let them. Mr. Oren?
Gil Oren, and I'm still at 45 Wallace Road.
I will need to swear you in. If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
And can you just spell your last name for the record, please?
O-W-R-E-N.
Thank you.
I want to clarify an implication that has been made, that because it was approved for 3 people several years ago by this board, that does not mean that 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way up should be approved. I think it's the numbers that is causing the problem. And the visa program, as I understand it, hasn't been implemented where we can be using those people. So it's going to be local people. And the local people come down Wallace Road on bikes, walking, and so on. I happen to get up early, and they are there. And they may not, maybe they shouldn't be doing that. You're saying, sir, my question is that if it's local domestics, whatever you want to call it, they have to go, not if they live in our area, over toward Marco Polo. They have to go through the main office, the main entrance. They don't go through Wallace Road? That's my question, sir.
Yeah, okay.
This is comment section.
These are comments.
Okay.
If there's a
Well,
reason
all right,
for
I'm gonna
rebuttal,
make-
we'll give the attorney
I
a chance
see.
to answer.
Can I just clarify, do you mean
Yeah.
they bike and they walk on the street?
Yes.
Okay.
They bought, well, if
Okay,
they have
well-
a bike, they have a bike, and they have, lights,
Hmm?
but they're coming down Wallace toward the entrance at Wallace right now, anyway. And
Give you a chance to answer.
according to your notice, it's not because it was done once, that for 3, doesn't mean that 27 can do it.
Which is why we're here.
I understand. But I want to make it clear that there was an
This-
implication.
I think this
that
board knows
Because it
that.
happened before, it's okay now.
I think this
It's the
board knows
numbers
that.
that caused the problem.
Gil, I think this board knows that.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Bill Jankowski, you want to swear me in again?
Do you swear from the testimony?
First one's no good?
I didn't swear you in the first time. Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please spell your last name for the record.
Jankowski,
And address.
39 Wallace Road,
Thank you.
which is 2 houses away from the entrance into the golf community. And when they say they don't need parking, it surprises the hell out of me. Saturday, my wife and I were going to a party. We walked out to get in the car. 14 cars came out of the entrance onto Wallace Road from the golf course. 14. In less than 10 minutes. So I don't understand why they don't need more parking. Or they're supposed to go up under the highway and out onto the highway. So that's my worry, more than anything, is the amount of traffic that comes all out at once. And if you're gonna have a guest there, the guest is gonna have a car to get there, or an Uber, or whatever, but there's gonna be a car, some sort of transportation. And they're gonna do an electric plan for lighting? Is that what I heard?
So
Yes.
the only lighting that's proposed right now is.
We'll answer those questions
Okay.
afterwards.
Okay.
You're asking, is there we'll make sure you get an answer before we're done.
Okay.
Anything else?
Okay. But cars come out of there in the middle of the night. I mean, when they make the turn on a golf course, their high beams come right into my living room or my bedroom, even with the blinds closed. So there's some miscommunication with the amount of people that use that entrance, that come onto Wallace Road or come down Wallace Road and go into the golf course. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments?
If you could raise your right hand, do you swear from the testimony you're about to give in this matter to the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
Paul Dean, 61 Wallace Road, Summit, New Jersey.
Can you just spell the last name, please?
Dean, Deehan.
Thank you.
I wasn't really familiar with the application until just recently. Did not understand the import of it, and but seeing it tonight, I bought a home on Woodland across from a golf course. I didn't buy a home across from a dormitory. And the house is perfectly clearly visible from the street. In terms of traffic on the street, there's employees going in and out of Wallace Road regularly. I believe employees also have a code to open the gate to come out on Wallace. So they can do that anytime they want. So I can only tell you that that's the traffic that's going on now. And Wallace is a beautiful street for people, their kids riding bikes, for people walking their dogs, and it's a beautiful neighborhood. But there will be traffic caused by this. But my biggest concern is the density. It's not fair to anybody, including anybody in this town, to allow a density of 155 square feet of living space with no justifiable basis other than the club thinks it's a good idea. The number shouldn't be that number. It should be definitely a smaller number, number one. Number two, if there is any approval granted, it should be conditioned that they always have to come back here for another use variance because you're opening up the doors for additional housing units on the site. The golf zone did not permit that. It was supposed to be golf only. And those are my thoughts on the project, and thank you for your hard work.
Thank you, Paul. Yes.
Jamie Jankowski, 39 Wallace Road.
And if you could raise your right hand, do you swear from the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Jamie Jankowski, 39 Wallace Road. I only have one statement to make. When Canoe Brook has their events, their entire staff parks on our street. We can't even get out of our driveways or drive two cars coming face to face. It's not what I purchased 2.5 years ago, never thinking that a golf course, I love the fact the golf course was across the street, but now I'm starting to think about why I bought there. Thank you.
Okay. Any other public questions? Yes, sir. You want a second shot at the apple? Okay. We give everybody. Go ahead. You're under oath.
Paul Dean, 61 Wallace Road, Summit, New Jersey. Again, going back to my comment, if the application to be approved, which I'm not necessarily opposed to the golf course needing to do their job. My only issue is 24 units for that building is much too high. So I'd ask that any restriction, any approval, just reduce the number of units to something livable for us, and that's all.
Any other public comments? Oops, sorry.
If you could raise your right hand, do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
Jennifer Joanides, Joinnides. I guess my only comment is in kind of support of the other residents on Wallace Road, that my major concern is traffic. I have 2 young kids, and the appeal of Wallace Road is that it is a beautifully quiet street, and we ride bikes, and we rollerblade, and we do all that stuff, and despite what is said to believe about the traffic on Wallace, there are cars coming in and out there all night. And given that I think people think it's a quiet street, they tend to speed, and that is my biggest concern. My other concern is that, as somebody said, that it kind of opens the door, the intention of, the international students and seasonal living isn't necessarily unappealing, but it's that could open the door for just a perpetual people in and out of there at all times, and that's what worries me. I think it will change the makeup of the neighborhood. That's it.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay. Last chance. Okay, I believe there were some questions that were asked that you may wish to respond to.
Yes. Okay, so for the lighting, can you just clarify, Kyle, the lighting that's being proposed?
Yeah, so for the.
Into a microphone,
No, into a
please.
microphone at all
And then,
times.
right, for both projects, what is the lighting that's being proposed?
Okay, Kyle Smith. So for the employee housing project, there's only one wall-mounted light that's being proposed to be added to the one entrance to the building. And for the above-ground storage tank, there's site lighting proposed to be in the direct area of the tanks, just safety lighting.
And
they're-
it will comply with the ordinance and be reviewed by the engineer?
That is correct.
And that would be a condition.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and then Albert?
Albert Costantini.
First, the wages, does Canoe Brook offer competitive wages? I mean, these people are not working for free.
Correct. Canoe Brook, we are a non-tipping club throughout the club, so our starting salary for front-of-the-house staff is in the $18 to $20 an hour range, which I believe is significantly higher than what minimum wage is.
Right, and obviously you don't have an issue with your employees biking or walking on Wallace Road like other residents in the neighborhood?
Correct. A lot of
Permitted to do
that
that.
traffic that's coming in and out of Wallace Road from employees are the grounds maintenance staff that, come to that side, and walking and bicycle riding is a big part of that.
And the people that are coming in and out are part of the 20 cars that you had mentioned that do come in and out of the site every day?
Correct.
And the gate is closed at 9:30?
Gate is closed at 9:30.
Does it ever open after 9:30?
I can't answer that definitively, but it is closed at 9:30, and that is our policy.
Okay, and then with regard to the events and people parking on Wallace Road?
So there are several times a year where we do large charitable functions over in the clubhouse that take at least every spot of parking that we have on the property. So we reach out to Summit Police Department and ask for permission to do employee parking on Wallace Road, and then we bus them from that area over to the clubhouse. That does happen sporadically throughout, mostly during the summer hours. That's when we have a lot of our large, like I said, charitable events, both on the golf course and in the ballroom.
And you run that by the Summit Police Department?
We get permission to do that every time we need it.
Okay.
I would also like to comment on a comment that was made about the members not wanting to pay for this. This entire project is paid for by member money, whether it be dues or assessments. We don't look for any public support for for paying for these projects. Any projects we do is all paid for by the members because it is for the members.
From your familiarity with the visa programs, are there any federal funds included in that? or
No,
how-
no
how does that
federal
have-
funds.
There's no dollars there.
No, we actually, it costs us to get involved in that program.
And what would your comment be about the comment that your employees have the code and use it anytime they want?
Well, there's a code that they need to use on the outside to get in. From inside to get out, it's a motion sensor. That's what gets turned off at 9:30 at night. So I can't definitively say. I'm not out there all hours of the night. But, to my knowledge, it's not happening.
Just wanted to give you the chance to
And-
answer that.
And as a condition of approval, would you agree to make it so that if you are coming in and out, just as you've testified to, they have to go through the Milburn site?
Yes.
Okay.
And that condition would be specific to the employees that are proposed to
Right,
live in that building?
exactly. It's not the
Yep.
maintenance and
It's
grounds.
Specific to that side, period.
Well,
Well,
maintenance
no, like
ground uses that in.
the actual workers that work on the maintenance and grounds that are coming in and out every day that work on that
That's
site.
daytime, we're talking
Right,
nighttime.
that should still be allowed to,
But not nighttime.
some of those workers leave at night, but before
Especially
9:30.
after the clocks change, and it's getting dark at 4:30, 5 o'clock at night. The gate doesn't lock until 9:30, so we could have staff working in the shops, working on the equipment, doing different things in the shop where they're leaving after it gets dark. So it can't be it's not an after dark thing, it's an after
No,
9:30.
it's after 9
type
o'clock.
thing. Yes, sir.
Nine
Or
thirty.
9:30, whatever.
Can I ask the applicant one question?
Sure.
Mr. Costino, I forget the exact wording, but these 24, whatever the number is, people, you get through these visa programs. I believe you said they won't have cars. Are you just assuming they won't have cars, or is that part of the?
Well, depending on, these employees, they could be coming from South Africa, Eastern Europe, Ireland, the Norwegian countries, they could be coming from South America. They're not shipping cars over here with them for the limited amount of time that they're here.
But, I mean, theoretically, I grant you're not paying them a lot of money. Couldn't they theoretically lease a car or have?
I don't want to talk theoretically.
Okay.
They could, and again, there's 26 spaces on site, 20 are being used by the employees. There's additional parking on the Milburn site, and they would agree to come in and out of that site.
Okay, all right.
Anything else you wish to comment on?
No, that's it.
Okay, then the hearing would be at this point closed. And I will turn to our attorney for conditions and votes.
I have
Required.
quite a few conditions. So first, we have our usual compliance with all those conditions noted in the board engineer's memorandum. Second is that a lighting plan will be submitted to the board engineer for review and approval.
No.
I can try to speak up. So second, we have a lighting plan will be submitted to the board engineer for review and approval. Third, a stormwater management plan which will include a dry well to accommodate at least 458 square feet of lot coverage will be submitted to the board engineer for review and approval. Fourth, revised plans which incorporate screening of the fuel storage will be submitted to the city forester for review and approval. Fifth, the applicant will submit the proposed plans to the fire chief for review and approval. Sixth, an alarm will be installed to monitor the fuel system, which will be transmitted to both maintenance and security personnel. And seventh, and I'll just ask Ms. Ulls to confirm that this is the correct understanding here, the employees living in the proposed 24 units must all use the Milburn entrance and exit.
Correct. Is that? Yes.
Is there anything else you remember that was a condition?
The bike rack, did you want to look into a bike rack, something had to do with a bike rack?
I would recommend that to the board, that you wanting to approve this, that I think you should add some bike racks in. Seems more reasonable.
Yeah, especially with the number of stolen bikes I've heard of like recently.
So add that as a condition, is that what the suggestion is?
That's a suggestion, yes.
And do we want to put a number? I mean, is there a recommendation for,
I don't have a recommendation. I mean, I'm thinking if you're gonna have 24 beds, I don't know that you need
I think you need at
24,
least-
but
I
maybe
think you
some
need at least
percentage of
half.
that, Maybe, yeah, maybe 12.
Okay. That's fine.
No, there's no further testimony from the street.
Not testimony, it's a
No,
question.
not question, no answers, no nothing. This is now our discussion. Not even your attorney is permitted to give us, accept, to acquiesce, yes or no. Okay.
Joe, before we move on, Chairman, wasn't there a discussion about the revised plan for the traffic flow?
That's correct, that for the, around the,
Parking.
around
Yep.
the tanks.
And part of that may be by the fire chief first apparatus.
And also the fire chief, getting a report from the fire chief, which you did agree to.
We
Right, I
do-
think he said that one.
Yeah,
Yep.
I have a general submission of proposed plans to the fire chief for review and approval, but we'll also note a
Right.
specific correction for the indication of traffic flow, which will include emergency apparatus.
Right, and again, just to
That-
clarify, the plans
Yes.
were submitted to the fire department, but we will
Yes, we know it's been submitted.
Yep.
try to
Yes
get a
or no?
report.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman? It's Negus, sorry. Regarding, can I offer one thought on the resolution?
Go ahead.
It had to do with the spill detection alarm. I think it was going to be connected to the
That's
primary
correct.
system. I just wanted to
Yes,
offer that.
the
Not sure
spill
if you caught that.
connection.
That was
Go
my
on.
sixth condition,
Was
that
it?
the alarm will be installed to monitor the fuel system, which will be transmitted to maintenance and security
Thank you very
personnel.
much. Sorry about that. I missed that.
Okay, I missed that one too, okay.
Could there be any condition that the residency or the occupancy of these units be not permanent?
I'm sorry, not what?
Do not turn into a permanent
Yes,
residency?
we will, I'm sure that'll be part of our discussion. We're just trying to make sure we get on the record those conditions that have been discussed now. If we want to add more, we can. And we'll get to that in discussion. As I mentioned early, I personally think that we need to consider these, even though they were submitted together, they're very distinct and different applications or items. And I almost feel like we should discuss them separately. And perhaps we should start with the tanks. And does anybody wish to start the discussion on the request for the approval for the tanks?
yeah, that's an easy one for me. I mean, the tanks, there's been testimony that the tanks are at the end of their useful life, which we have no basis to doubt, but I'm sure, I fully accept that that's probably true. And I know we've had this discussion before, that above-ground tanks are safer than in-ground tanks, so I think that's a very good argument why they should be above ground. I didn't pick up until we saw the drawing tonight that they're going to be kind of recessed into that berm, so I think that's a very positive step, and the landscaping around there, subject to the approval of the forester, is a good move. I tend to worry about things like tanks, but it seems like the safety has been addressed as much as we can. They've said it's safer, and the experts say it's safer, so I guess I will believe that. I'll be happier once the fire chief, assuming the fire chief has no problems with the access, God forbid there is a fire or other concerns, that that the fire department feels safe with that. If they do have concerns, obviously the applicant would have to comply with whatever the fire chief says, so I think that's understood. I think they've met their proofs on that it's safer, has a positive impact from a safety point of view, and it's well screened. Make for better operation of their systems. So I can definitely support the tank. Don't have a problem with the tanks.
Anyone else wish to comment?
I don't have problem with the tanks, but I have problem with ignoring any other source of energy on a 124-acre land. There are opportunities to use solar and other sources of energy
that were not considered. So I don't have a problem with the tanks, but I see this as a source of energy that could be replaced otherwise. I wouldn't stop this,
You wouldn't stop the tanks, but
the tanks,
you'd
but I
you'd like them
think
to
this
consider
is,
doing some other
consider
things.
other sources of energy.
I wondered where the electric charging stations were for the 26 cars. Anyway. Anybody else have on the tanks?
I support the tanks. I think it's a move in the right direction.
Any,
Yeah, less
everybody,
volume
everybody
is
gets a
is
chance to
positive.
talk.
So reducing the volume of the tanks is also positive. The
Right.
amount of storage
So-
on site, so.
You know, and apparently it's one tank now that's separated into two things. Now you have two separate tanks, which should be better. You know more about tanks than I ever will.
It's half the volume, that's how I see it. you know,
Right.
total.
Okay. Any other comments on the tanks? All right, let's then, I think we have some consensus there. And we can decide in a few minutes whether we want to vote on them individually or if we want to have a combined motion. Who would like to start on the dwelling units?
I'll start.
Thank you.
First, I mean, it is a huge change to go from 3 to 27. I think this happens often. There's reference to this board approved. It's not this board. It's not, and I say that specific to these people sitting here. It was a board in 2005, and, we all know that standards change over the years. So that's not super compelling to me that 3 have already been approved to go to 27. I'm also not sure it advances the purpose of zoning. It's advancing it for a private use, not a public use. All of these people are being brought in for a private purpose. And there's also been a lot of testimony that most of the other golf courses house their employees off-site. To me, it doesn't matter who's paying for that housing, whether it's the golf course or the employees. Like, if you're bringing them over and you want them to pay for their housing, then you have to pay them that wage, or whether you offer them off-site housing as part of the package. Sometimes that's probably I believe that is part of the visa process. I'm just not sure that it's not, super compelling to me. Also, to be honest, there's no kitchen. You have 27 people living in a building with access to 2 meals a day. This is our executive session, so please just let me talk. I find it's just very challenging. Also, I think while the planner said that there aren't many places in Summit where this could happen, this dormitory situation, I do think it sets a precedent, and we do hear often people come in and say, there's a precedent set, my neighbor, this street. It's a pretty big precedent, and to go from 3 to 27 it's a little too big a change for me.
So I do just want to clarify quickly, legally, there's no precedent from the prior approvals on this site or approvals from other sites. Every application, we've said it before, it stands on its own based on the testimony that's been presented to us this evening. They're seeking the D1 use variance for the particular, additional 24 units that they're seeking tonight. So,
Right.
don't get bound up by what has happened in the past. We're looking at this fresh this evening.
Right, and so looking at it fresh, I see, I just don't see the case as for advancing the public good. So it seems like it advances a private purpose. But that's what
Okay.
that's all I have, yeah.
Yes, sir.
I would just add, the benefits I heard, striped parking, a handicap parking spot, putting the tanks aside for a second, stormwater control. not super compelling benefits, and I think most of the benefits are to the club themselves. I'm not necessarily against it, but I think the word density came up, and maybe we're not using it in the right term, but I think there's a general feeling that, I think 150 square feet includes common space. So it'd be, the living space would even be tighter for 24 people. And I really didn't hear much around, well, maybe we could do 15 or 12, or not sure what the right number would be. So I'm not necessarily against adding living space for employees. It's just a matter of, it feels like cramming 24 people in. I'd almost rather see a kitchen, right? So it just feels more natural, to me at least. So just my general thoughts.
Yeah, Joe? So
Yes, sir.
I can't say I've made up my mind about this one yet, because I think, I was concerned about the comments. It's not really a direct answer, but it did sound like most other country clubs do this off-site. But on the other hand, the applicant testified that they have the space and maybe other country clubs don't. I don't know if that's true, but that was the testimony. So they certainly have the space for it, just the physical space. And it's, I'm really betwixt and between, because it does sound like a large increase. We have the testimony from the applicant that the people who live there won't be, or will be required to access, not through Wallace Road gate, but through the main country club. So that, should address that concern if that's actually how it's going to work. I think the design is good. I think if we were just looking at it as a building, it's probably going to be a more attractive building than what's there now. It's not an increase in footprint at all, except for the outside staircase. So in that sense, I'm not going to lie, but it's just the increase in employees, the number of people that gives me pause. I'm sure the applicant's in good faith saying that they won't be going out Wallace Road, and sounds like they probably won't have cars. They're going to be, even though you're paying them a generous hourly rate, it's not people going to buy. People aren't going to go out and buy a car because when they're here for a year, some of them might lease a car, rent a car occasionally. I just have concerns about the number of employees. Wish I could be more coherent about it than that, but that's what it comes down to.
Here's some things that concern me. This is right from the applicant itself. The proposal provides sufficient off-street parking unless there's an event. So then you don't have proper off-street parking. You end up parking on Wallace Road. Proposal is reducing the height of the building by how much? 6 inches. Proposal is providing housing to employees of the club, which will provide sufficient space in appropriate locations for a variety of residential, recreational uses, and open space in order to meet the needs of all New Jersey citizens. There's a proposal that we're not even going to hire New Jersey citizens. We're going to use the visa program. But how do all the New Jersey residents benefit from this this application? That's what I'm struggling with. It is a private entity asking for an increase. I don't disagree with my cohort here. Maybe a smaller number would be better. But I'm struggling as well as my cohort over there is with the number of people. I can tell you from experience, it's been a while, but I've frequented some of those houses there a long time ago, and now with the new requirements there, that's good. But I know years ago they weren't there, so there are always those outliers. But those three things, it's supposed to benefit the entire community, and I don't think it does.
So just keep in
Shoot.
mind,
Go ahead.
if I can.
Sure.
The applicants have presented the argument that there is a shortage of housing in New Jersey in general, so that this will benefit the New Jersey housing market by providing those additional units at a lower price point than what they could get off-site somewhere else. So keeping that in mind in our deliberations.
Sure.
And just one comment about the event parking. I think the event parking is going to happen whether they get approved tonight or not. I mean, the event parking, as I understood Mr. Constantine's testimony, that's really when they have a big outing on the golf course or a big charity event at the main building. They go to the police department. I don't know if they ever say no, but they at least go to the police department and say, we need this parking on Wallace Road. I think that's gonna happen whether we approve this tonight or not, so I don't
You're
think
right.
that's,
I do kind of wonder if they do it, if they alternate between Milburn and here.
No idea.
That's what I was gonna say. Why,
No, I-
why would that neighborhood always have to be the recipient of that event, of the
I
parking?
don't- and I- we don't know if it
We
is.
we don't know. You're
Yeah.
absolutely
There's
right.
always Tennyson Road.
You're right.
Anyway, only because I lived on it for years. I do want to tell the board, and I've forgotten if we mentioned it or not, but based on these variances, this will require 5 affirmative votes. So, do you have something
I
you
just
want?
have one thing, and it has to do with the kitchen. The
No.
reason there's
No.
no kitchen is it's a condition of
There
approval.
is no kitchen.
Because from the prior approval, that was a condition of approval.
Right, we know
That's-
that.
Okay.
And actually, you wound up doing a deed restriction over it. if I'm
No,
not mistaken.
the deed restriction was to deed restrict it to never be single-family.
Okay. Okay. I have to tell you that I have issues with the size of this. These are 2 people in a room. You get up and you kind of like fall into the other bed, which is dormitories, the college rooms. And I know the kids down the shore do it on those visas, and they have a grand time. But if they're down the shore, they have great things. I don't know how you do that in a golf course. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure that I can support the size of this. I think again, I join my fellow. If it were a number that was a little bit smaller and differently designed, I think we could perhaps more easily move forward with it. And there's nothing to stop them from coming back down the road if it's a booming success to perhaps add more down the road in another location or other places. Go ahead.
So, based on what the board is saying, the applicant is willing to look at the number and come back with a revised number.
So you would like us to table this
The
portion of
employee
it?
housing, yes,
And
but if you could,
do we have another date that we can hear this on? I know, you're going to hate me.
right, I mean, it should be pretty quick, it's just gonna be,
Yeah, I know. I know what little quick means. 6 hours later. Are we looking at January?
I mean, everything is pretty packed up until February 19th. That's the only thing.
So you're looking at next year. Okay, February 19th would be something we could do, but we can move ahead with the
Yes.
tanks, which is, I think, something that DEP and so a lot of other people would like to see safely done
So
at
do
an
we have to-
earlier date.
bifurcate the conditions then too, right? We have to-
Exactly. So I would entertain a motion to approve the tank relocation with the various conditions that apply to it.
Which were at least the fire department, the forester, and what else?
Lighting plan,
Her letter as it affects to them.
yes. And
The alarms.
the alarms being connected to maintenance and security personnel. The screening will be reviewed by the city forester, and that should do it.
Circulation?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
revised, yes,
right.
circulation plan.
Yeah.
Just a quick thought. If they were to come back with a smaller number of bedrooms, it would change the number of parking spots that would be required. Would that change the placement of the tanks, or are you comfortable with where the tanks are?
we're comfortable with where they are.
Yeah.
Okay. I would entertain such a motion if there is one.
I will move approval of the fire tank resolution. The gas
Second.
fuel tank resolution.
The tanks.
Thanks.
Tank and diesel, right.
I'm obsessed
Second.
with the fire safety issues.
Is there a second?
We got one from Ms. Vaughn.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Yuko?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Ms. Zahn,
Yes.
Mr. Kieran,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Chanchuli,
Yes.
Chairman Steiner.
Yes.
The motion carries.
I would then accept a motion to carry this particular case as far as the building for expansion of housing until February 19th with no further notice, and that you will grant us the ability to extend the time the board has to act.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to extend it to February 19th.
Second?
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes.
Ms. Zahn,
Yes.
Mr. Kieran,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Chanchuli,
Yes.
Chairman Steiner.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. As you leave, we have additional business to go through, so we will move on to resolutions for approval.
So the first resolution we have is 23 Cromwell Parkway. That's Block 1802, Lot 36, ZB-24-2250, Maximilian and Carolyn LaFranc. Our eligible voting members are Chairman Steiner, Vice Chairman Loikitz, Mr. Yuko, Mr. Nelson, Ms. Zahn, Mr. Kieran, and Ms. Toth. Can we have a motion?
I'll move it.
So moved.
I'm going to take Mr. Yuko in a second.
Second.
Done.
Okay, thank you. Chairman Steiner?
Yes.
Mr. Yuko?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Ms. Zahn?
Yes.
Mr. Kieran?
Yes.
The motion carries.
And we have a...
I'm sorry, we just need a little quiet.
Folks, we need to continue. Thank you. What do we have?
And then the extension.
An extension from the LaFrancs?
No, 16 Edgewood Road.
Wrong one, okay. 16 Edgewood, okay.
So,
That's-
as a brief description, the applicants there, we approved this back in January of this year, basically right before we started doing the 2-year timeframes for getting building permits. They just missed that cutoff, so they only had a 1-year timeframe to get the permit. They are doing this construction in phases. They've completed their first phase. I think they're in the middle of their second phase. And the final phase is the addition that they plan to have plans for by this winter and get the construction permit by spring or the summer. So they're asking for that 1-year extension, which would bring it in line with what we're basically doing now as a matter of practice anyway.
Make
So
a
moved.
motion to approve.
Second?
Okay. Second?
Second?
Okay. Chairman Steiner?
Yes.
Mr. Kieran?
Yes.
Mr. Chanchuli?
Yes.
Mr. Yuko?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Ms. Zahn?
Yes.
Mr. Malay?
Yes.
The motion carries. All right, so,
And the most extensive set of minutes of 9 pages I've ever seen. That's what's up.
okay, so next we'll do the minutes.
Yep.
That is from October 21st.
Yep.
So we will exclude the members who were not present that evening, which is
Me.
Ms. Zahn, Mr. Kieran, Mr. Feskins, and Chairman Steiner. Do we
Yes.
have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. The last thing I have on here, I sent an email about the calendar for 2025, as I'm running out of dates to schedule anything on. So I just wanted to add our March and April dates, and I sent those out to you. I have March 3rd, 2025, March 17th, 2025, and then I have April 7th and April 21st for 2025. Did anyone see any issue with any of those dates?
St. Patrick's Day, but I guess that's not a problem.
I didn't look at when some schools have.
Any Irish people in there?
Yeah.
That would be the only.
None.
Someone might want to be Irish.
So are we thinking spring break might be a problem? I think someone told me that they did look into it for me and
trying to remember who it was. I think Ms. Ch had mentioned that, if I'm not mistaken.
She gets these.
Actually, yeah, it doesn't actually. Anyway.
I don't think it was conflicting with it, to be honest.
So if
Do you think we'll have a full set by next time?
It depends on council, to be honest, to see if I have council chambers. So what I will do is I'll check back with them to see where they're at with their schedule, and then if I can move forward.
Okay.
But
Then
they did say
Everybody
that
look at these
were
dates, because
okay.
we're going to try and do as many of them as we can by next meeting.
Okay,
All
that's
right.
fine.
Then you want approval tonight?
I actually did, if that is possible, if you guys are comfortable with that.
I'm
And we
comfortable with it.
could always, if we approve them this evening, we can also, amend them later if something comes up.
Well, my
we do
only
need to
concern is
change
if we have a spring vacation in there,
I don't think it is.
and I don't know. All right, well, okay, why don't we move these dates, and we can always change them next time.
Thank you, that would be great. Can I have a motion?
So moved?
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Okay.
Voice vote?
Don't we usually do a roll
You
call?
can have
Let's
a
do
voice
roll
vote.
call just to be safe.
Yeah, okay. Chairman Steiner?
Yes.
Mr. Yuko?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Ms. Zahn?
Yes.
Mr. Curran?
Yes.
Mr. Malay?
Yes.
Mr. Chanchuli?
Yes.
The motion carries.
And at our next meeting, we will have an executive session immediately afterwards covering two issues, including our professionals for next year and a request from Ms. Zahn to discuss another issue. So we will have that meeting then. Plus our regular agenda.
Yes. I need you
So,
to sign
Plan to be here early.
7th.
What?
That's minutes from the 7th.
Oh, I didn't sign those?
No, because that was when,
Oh,
you left.
sorry.
It's okay.
By the way, if it's any consolation, spring break, I looked it up, is between our two April meetings, so,
Perfect.
yeah, that's what the
Thank
calendar.
you. I thought we were okay.
Maybe March 18th instead of the 17th? We'll figure it out next time.
I was joking.
Not.
Here we go.
I mean, it is St. Patrick's Day, but
Do we have a problem with the 17th? Any Irish people here?
not me, anyway.
My
Yes.
son does
I'm a
have
little
spring
bit.
break that week.
There is one.
Okay, thank you all, and at 11:05, we are adjourned. All those in favor, say aye.
College, right?
Good night.